More mullets than an Alabama Walmart. More pandering than an Alabama political rally. More casual racism than an Alabama household. Holy shit. I just realized how much WWF in the 1990s is a lot like Alabama. It's In Your House Too. This week on Nothing Good.
Well, gentlemen, we are here for another episode. Mr. Brown, Jeff, Mac, welcome to In Your House Too. We're talking 1995, all things WWF. Before we get started, how you gents doing this fine day?
Bright and early today, boys. Bright and early today. I'd say that. Doing good. I was thinking, because this seems to be kind of a theme of the late 80s, early 90s. We should just have a subtitle of the podcast, Nothing Good, ... a review of casual racism of the 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
So much of it.
Oh my God.
so much
true.
of it.
I think like 1/3 of our podcast episodes could probably fall under that category.
Yeah, it seems to come up often.
It's one of those things. I wasn't prepared for the level, it's early, of subtle racism. And I was doing some math. And if you remove Jerry the King Lawler from the show we're about to review, there's still some, but it's not as in your face, or as one would say, in your house.
I feel like that probably is going to be a subtext of the Vince McMahon biography when he dies.
Yeah.
what you just said.
It's really funny.
There's some racism. It's just not on the surface.
No, it's just all right there. Just what it's like phyllo dough, right? Just really thin layers covering it up, right? It's like Spanish.
You just equate racism to food.
Yes, to Greek food specifically, which also is really apt. Shout out to our listeners in the Greek country of Greece. What's up?
So, speaking of shout outs, before you go down a rabbit hole of whatever you were about to do, I just want to stop you there and give a special shout out to the gentleman who requested this episode. A friend of the show, Nick. Your last name I will not pronounce because I will butcher it, but you know who you are. This episode's for you. He reached out to us and said, "Hey, man, I love what you guys are doing. I would love it if you reviewed this pay-per-view." We're down with that. So shout out to Nick for that. We appreciate you. Hope you enjoyed the episode. I hope you're not Greek.
I mean, if you are, sweet. I wasn't making fun of Greek people.
I hope.
Not yet. But the night is long and full of terrors. But Nick, thank you.
We'll get there.
Thank you so much for it's a big thing for us because somebody that none of us knew that obviously listens to the show reached out and asked us to review this wrestling show. And I mean, fuck yes. So Nick, this is for you. And everything that happens from this point forward is your fault. And you are liable in a court of law. I just want you to know that.
Oh no.
So listen, I figured inside baseball. For the fun people listening, this is the earliest in the day we've ever recorded this show. So I guess the next question is going to be A, moot, and B, boring. But I got to ask, what's everybody drinking on this fine Saturday?
Can we let Jeff go first? Because I don't know if Jeff has stopped drinking from last night.
Sure, I'll go first. So I'm double fisting in the morning, as you do. In one hand, I have a cup of coffee that may or may not be half filled with Baileys. And in the other hand, I have a beer because why not? So I am drinking, it's called King's Gold. It's a Pilsner from Iron Hill Brewing out in Eastern PA. Something light, just get the day started.
It's just very nice, very, very tasty. Double day drinking early in the morning. Way to go.
You can't drink all day if you don't start in the morning.
That's right.
That's true.
That's a beautiful statement. I'm drinking a venti iced Americano with blonde espresso from Starbucks, as it is very early, and I have things to do whenever 8 hours from now when we stop recording.
Do you want some of this for it?
I mean, that would be great. If our listeners, keen listeners to the show, will know that I did what I call the NAFTA the last time I had coffee on the show, which was to take an Americano and I put a shot of tequila in it. That was a hell of a day. And my wife, if she could have fucking hit the mute button on me as soon as I got done recording the podcast, she would have. But so we'll see if the tequila. I have the tequila next to me, so we'll see how excited I get about Terry the King Lawler and his fucking babbling as we get going on. Mac, what are you drinking?
Well, I got a long day of drinking ahead of me, so why wait? And I'm not even fucking around. So we got some raspberry Bacardi in here. We got some cola, and we're just kind of we're just going hard. So yeah, for whatever reason, my body's like, Dave, might be just a little early in the morning to start drinking some beer. And then my mind goes, yeah, but it's not too early to start drinking booze. So that's where we are today, boys. Now, the last time I did this, I tore the fuck into your brother, Drew. So we're going to see where this goes.
We could call him.
Let's call into the show.
He's not doing it right now. Doc.
So I am not drinking coffee because this is my day off. And I am, in fact, supposed to be here today. So I am drinking. A friend of the show actually brewed some mead from his brewery. His meadery is called Land Viking Meadery. Our buddy Chris Lindemann stopped by some time ago and dropped off a couple of bottles. It's got some blackberry flower honey notes. It's very tasty. Highly recommend.
Wait a minute. That fucking thing looks like it's glowing.
It's because it is.
It looks like that if you poured some on the ground and some young turtles were to crawl through it, that eventually we'd get a casual racism presented by a guy who lives in a van.
I would like to take that a step further, Noah. That looks like the blood from the aliens in Alien.
Yeah.
Like Chris caught one, slit its throat, hung it upside down, drained it, put some honey and hops in there, and now we have a beverage.
Well, it is good.
Oh, good.
I'll go with that.
Shout out to Lindy.
Just don't drop it on the floor, Jones. Your neighbors below you would not be happy.
You'll never get that deposit back.
True.
No.
And also, if you go blind in the middle of this episode,
you'll know why.
Can't see, it's not your video feed is cut out. We'll know why.
It's me. I'm cut out.
Well, let's set the stage. I got to do my unnecessarily detailed setup for the person who probably made the wise decision and didn't watch this episode ahead of us promoting it. So it is mid-1995, the summer, July of 1995 in the world of wrestling. So here's a backstory. It's a weird time, right? So WCW is a thing. WWF's a thing. On the WCW side, we're about 3 months away from the debut of Monday Nitro, less than 3 months away, which is going to change everything. As we'll see on the show, Lex Luger, the big kicking off jump point, fuck him, as I'll say multiple times, has not jumped ship yet, but the Macho Man Randy Savage has left for WCW. Eric Bischoff is ramping up his end, and in exactly 1 year from the date of the show, the NWO will debut at Bash of the Beach, 1996. So also, but one of the real things to pay attention to that's going on with WCW at this time is Bischoff has begun monthly wrestling pay-per-views, which was unheard of at this time. Vince was only doing 4 to 5 a year. And Bischoff said, well, fuck that. I got the money. I have unlimited money, essentially. So he started running even shittier pay-per-views every single month. So on the WWF side, things are starting to look shaky. They're no longer the main thing in town with national exposure. Everyone knows WCW is coming for them. Ratings are down, and they have been down for a while. And right now, in July 95, we're in the mid to late Diesel era. WrestleMania 11 is in the rearview mirror, and it did not produce in any viable way that Vince would want it, despite the fact that there was tons of heavy press for Lawrence Taylor wrestling Bam Bam Bigelow in the main event. So right now they are trying some shit, and SummerSlam's on the horizon, which, as everyone knows, at this time they treat it as their second biggest show. So what's happening with our top stars and storylines? Well, in the main event of WrestleMania, Diesel retained the WWF Championship against Shawn Michaels, who had brought in Psycho Sid as his new heater. The next night, Sid turns on Shawn and begins his feud with Diesel. I'll get into the complicated nature of that when we get to that fucking match. But the Sid angle turns Shawn Michaels babyface, and it starts his road to being the next big thing. Or rather, should I say that it starts Vince McMahon fucking jacking off to every concept of Shawn Michaels, and it will not stop from this point forward for the rest of his goddamn life. Shawn has essentially hit the reset button to become as a more edgy, controversial, let his mullet grow even more profound. Some would say controversial. I'd say strung out.
It was so powerful, though.
Such a powerful wet mullet.
Like, I forget what Shawn Michaels without a bald spot looked like.
it was a mullety lion's mane. You know? It was very Simba of him. But he's a babyface, and he had his sights set on the Intercontinental title, currently held by Double J, Jeff Jarrett. For his part, has been doing this country music gimmick that he's probably best known for, with his new sidekick, the Roadie, a.k.a. Brian James, a.k.a. the future Road Dogg. And they've been pushing this new single, With My Baby Tonight. And tonight at In Your House, we're finally set to get a live performance, air quotes, before he defends the Intercontinental title. And a lot going on in that regard. Meanwhile, all of this is set to take place at In Your House. It's a relatively new pay-per-view concept for Vince McMahon at this point, doing shorter, cheaper price pay-per-views in between his established Big Five as a way to counter the new trend by Eric Bischoff of doing monthly shows. Tonight's show follows last month's King of the Ring 1995, where of all fucking people, Mabel has been crowned the King of the Ring and will face off the winner of tonight's main event for the WWF Championship in the main event of SummerSlam next month, which will take place in Pittsburgh. If anyone remembers that goddamn show.
Do you remember when Pittsburgh used to get like mid to upper tier pay-per-views?
We ruined that.
Before we ruined that?
Oh, we ruined that in 2014.
Ruined it hard.
I can't wait to review that show. But Vince is banking on the success of this concept, right? Because with the declining ratings, we're still fresh off the steroid controversy, and he is hemorrhaging all of his established stars to WCW, and that wouldn't stop anytime soon, to the open checkbook that is Ted Turner. You know, all of these things he needs to be a success, but do you know who's not on this show? The WWF's most internationally lucrative star, Bret the Hitman fucking Hart. Because in an effort to keep the shine on his top babyface Diesel and his new jack-off obsession objective, Shawn Michaels, Vince has decided to just not fucking use Bret Hart except to wrestle in the mid-card. And he ain't wrestling in the mid-card on this show. So Bret Hart, a.k.a. the greatest fucking wrestler of this generation and probably of all time, is not to be found on this show. He wrestles in a dark match after. Against fucking PCO. Jean-Pierre Lafitte, but it's not on this show, so I still get to be fucking pissed off about it. So fuck you for that one. And here we are in Nashville, of all goddamn places, in the summer of 1995.
You'd think they would have kept the cameras rolling on that match and then, sometime just added it later. Because, but yeah, you figure for the network, they'd have the cameras going for some of those dark matches and give the people more, because that's what, these streaming services all are now, is just what content can you feed me? So let's go ahead and add that. But they didn't. They didn't even give it.
It is.
Not on. Wait, no.
It's not a part of this show. It's part of the Coliseum videos.
Yeah, it's on the video. Right.
I believe the Bret Hart Jean-Pierre Lafitte is on the Invasion of the Body Slammers collection. And then the main event that the live crowd got, which was probably good for them, poor for us, was a casket match between The Undertaker and Kama, which also appeared on Coliseum video.
Invasion of the Body Slammers sounds like one of the porns you wish you didn't find in your brother's collection.
Yeah. It's like, oh man, which one am I going to watch today? Invasion of the Body Slammers or Gaping Assholes 3?
It's a toss-up, really.
Yeah,
It
but
is.
both at the same time. If you have two VHS players, right? You
It
just
dep-
got to make sure you put it back in the same spot, or he'll know. I mean,
It depends on the position of the asshole and what you're putting into it.
I don't know why it's got a vision of spackling drywall on someone's asshole, but maybe it's because I'm in home renovation mode on this fine day.
Did you say putting or pudding?
No, putting. Like, you know,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
Oh,
Just making sure.
Yeah.
I heard what I thought I heard.
Yeah.
there you go.
It's the 19th hole of mini golf you weren't expecting.
Oh my God. If there isn't a golf themed porn parody that's called the 19th hole, there fucking needs to be. Oh my God. You know what? For any aspiring porn producers, reach out to us. We're interested in producing the 19th hole. I bet you can actually get the real John Daly to be in it too. You know?
Who is referenced in this pay-per-view.
He was. That's the only reason he's fresh on my mind. He's like one of 4 golfers I know about. All of which, by the way, have some sort of domestic violence issue associated with them. So who would have thought? It's the pants. It's the pants. You guys ready to talk about this goddamn thing?
Yeah,
Yes.
let's get into it.
Let's
Yeah.
fucking get into it.
Okay. So the show intro kicks off with the new generation intro. And for a brief moment, I was like, oh my God, I fucking missed the mid-90s WWF, the World Wrestling Federation. And then what the fuck happens? And immediately it just goes right into a country guitar and a shot of a
Oh
pickup.
man, it's terrible. It did not age well. Did not
It's
feel
so
good.
bad.
I totally forgot about that song, and I just like had a flood of memories of being 12 years old. I'm like, this is not good now.
Mm-mm.
I don't think it was good then.
There is a shot in that intro that I want us to recreate when we put this podcast out there of 3 people in a cowboy haberdashery just pointing at the camera, all wearing like white suits. You know, and I'm just like, let's do that to promote the episode.
Yeah, it's but it's immediately this video seeks to tell you 3 things. One, if you weren't fucking aware, if you're just a regular person who decided to order a wrestling pay-per-view, unfortunately, this summer, that this show takes place in the South, like in the most South you can get without a banjo being involved, but that comes later.
It was
2,
so south, I thought it was a WCW show.
It's right. It literally is. It comes off like a WCW show with all the presentation too. That I'm sure that our listeners in the South can attest that this is Vince McMahon's like vision of the South. Just a bunch of people with cowboy hats and mustaches pointing at each other. Like that's what he imagined life in Nashville is like. And 3, this is all about Shawn Michaels, just like every other fucking thing on this show. Because as soon as the thing gets started, it's a pickup truck, it's a guy playing a guitar, and then Shawn Michaels without a shirt gyrating. And then the next clip is Shawn Michaels gyrating. And then someone body slams somebody, and in the background, fucking Shawn Michaels is gyrating.
He loves the country music.
It's
Can he say?
Yeah.
60 seconds into this goddamn thing, and I'm already tired of Shawn Michaels. But we'll get, or Vince's opinion of Shawn Michaels, rather.
Yes.
The last thing I want to.
So we open the show. Go please.
No, I just wanted to say the last thing about this goddamn intro is: did you guys notice the in your house graphic that happens right at the end of this? That and I've never noticed this before. And of all the fucking wrestling I've ever watched in my life, this bothers me. Is that they have the in your house graphic where it knocks on the door. And nobody answers. So the fucking in your house graphic slips in through the window like a fucking prowler. What is it planning to do with the people in that home?
I actually
Nothing
think
good.
I think we know the answer to that.
I actually think we saw that in a Randy Orton, Chris Jericho feud, like down the road. You know,
Doesn't that happen in every Randy Orton feud? Eventually, he invades somebody's home, or somebody invades his home.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah.
that's his kink, home invasion. All right, Doc. What happens after this video?
As the title goes, nothing good because we have a bargain bin Jerry Lawler, good old JR impersonation that god awful hat he had on his head. But more importantly, do I miss face Vince McMahon so badly? His just god awful. I missed that Vince McMahon. I forgot how much I missed that Vince McMahon.
Yeah, this was
we
this was pre Mr. McMahon.
Yeah,
Yep.
it
Before
was
that character
cool.
came about.
It was nice to see the smiling, really corny joke, dat joke Vince McMahon, who just rooted for all the good guys, no matter how stupid it was. It was nice.
Blatantly too. There are parts of this that we're going to get into that I really did miss. This particular style of presentation, and he was so amped. Vince was definitely the most amped person on this pay-per-view, and babyface Vince's vocabulary is ridiculous. It's the indelible, unbreakable, irresistible Shawn Michaels, and it's like, oh, damn, Vince, put the fucking thesaurus down and call the match.
I just love the idea of Vince in the back of his car as he's being driven between cities with flashcards, just trying to properly learn how to use these words in a sentence. You know?
And Vince McMahon dressing, again, pandering here. Vince McMahon, who probably had to look himself in a mirror and convince himself to wear what he had to wear the fucking outfit with no shoulder pads in it. Fucking incredible.
He's definitely worn that for Linda at least a few times, either before or since.
Oh man,
walks into the bedroom.
Big power walking Vince.
Just walking right in.
Vince.
Yeah, and you mentioned it, Noah, in the intro video. Like, it was that whole opening package was sort of his envisioning of what it's like in the South, and it's all like the most stereotypical things you would think when you think about country music.
Yep,
and all of the staff was wearing those stupid bolo ties and the vests. And meanwhile, you look around the crowd, the people who are actually from Nashville, and nobody is wearing anything even remotely similar to that.
I saw at least 2 different people wearing Pittsburgh Penguin gear, which threw me off because I didn't know Nashville even knew about sports in the mid-90s.
Well, I mean, you had for sure. No, they had college football, right?
You barely had the Tennessee Titans, I think, at that point. That's even, I think, still pre them. I think
it's still Houston Oilers
were still, and like most of the people, but I did like this because as you look through the crowd, and I got a lot of thoughts on the crowd on the show. just to point out,
peak 90s crowd.
Oh, so
but like there's so much starter gear in the audience, like not bad starter gear, good starter gear. It definitely took me back to that mid 90s time when what you were going to wear to a sporting event was much simpler and probably a lot cheaper. But an interesting crowd for this show too.
Yeah, it's one of those types of things. Vince McMahon has always been known for being really strange with referencing where your show is. He's either going to refuse to acknowledge the town that they're in, or he's going to not shut the fuck up about where they are. So he won't tell you that they're in Poughkeepsie. But if you're in New York or Boston, or in this case Nashville, or in Calgary, you're going to get every fucking gratuitous reference to it. It's absurd a little bit in that regard, but these people just wanted to come see a wrestling pay-per-view, and Vince McMahon is like in their fucking face telling them like, no, god damn it, this is about you love this, but you hate the one person who's from here. Fuck you.
I went ahead at the beginning of this pay-per-view and I set a limit to how long it would take before the Grand Ole Opry was going to be referenced in this pay-per-view. I had it at under 3.5 minutes, fucking 30 seconds.
Right in.
No time. Damn. Wasted no time.
No, because that's the thing, right? What's going on in Nashville? Food, the Grand Ole Opry, music. That's it. There's Beale Street. I don't even know. I don't even know if that's I think that's Memphis. Take that back. See? Like, I don't even know. It's fucking Tennessee. But we do. What I do love, what I do miss about this era, is the opening the show by standing next to the ring with the lights going on, because it feels real. It feels so real that they forgot to turn the lights on so you could see everyone's face in the intro conversation. So they're down and Vince is doing his whole thing, and Jerry Lawler's just waiting to get his shtick in. And I love, it's one of those types of things, because I love when a show starts and you hear the music and then the bell rings. It's one of those little subtle, awesome feels of wrestling. But the fact that they're in the middle of their thing, and then we get the 1, 2, 3 Kids theme song, which is just, it's a whole thing. It's just incredible. It's incredible. Makes me forget that the pay-per-view was breaking into my house to molest me at the end of the video. But our opening match is the 1-2-3 Kid going against the Roadie in our show opener. DX 3 years ahead of its time.
Yeah. How about that?
Oh, God, there's so much DX in this pay-per-view.
So much
So
fucking
much.
DX.
Oh my God.
It's this show is basically DX, the NWO, and various combinations of each other, just running around, not really caring that they're on pay-per-view.
You know, it was one of the notes that I had about this pay-per-view is that it really almost felt like we were in a test kitchen. You know, like shit's changing. We need to change with it. What do we do? You know? And you see so much. Here's what we're going to try. We're going to see what works. We're going to see what doesn't. And we're going to keep moving forward. Like that's what a lot of this felt like to me, because, you know, when you know what comes after, you know, you can see seeds of it very early on kind of being planted here. And that kind of goes with the video stuff, because there wasn't any. And that was one of the things that I'd kind of forgotten about, is that you didn't have those video, you know, vignettes leading up to it, except for the final match. You know, they did put one together for the last match of the night. But like you can't even watch a WWE pay-per-view right now without watching an hour of video vignettes of like introducing you to what this whole match is all about. So, but yeah, we got little DX here, you know, 3 years early coming in.
Jafar, what do you think of this match?
I thought it was pretty solid as an opening match. I mean, one thing that stood out to me is how young Sean Waltman looked, but how Roadie looks exactly the same as he did
Yes.
all these years later. I mean, 1-2-3 Kid did not age well. Maybe it was all the cocaine. Who knows?
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that happened. You know, hopefully it's not happening anymore. But there was a couple of decades there.
Yeah, but it
Have you
seemed
seen
like
what he looks like? By any chance?
Yeah.
Kid?
yeah,
He's looking
Looks
better
great.
now. Yeah, he's looking better now. Like great. Yeah.
But it seemed like they were trying to put the Roadie over, and maybe it was because it was Nashville and what was coming with the big Double J performance and whatnot. But I think overall it was a solid start in terms of in-ring action.
Yeah, Doc, what do you think of this match?
First of all, them billing Sean Waltman as 212 pounds is fucking suspect. I refuse to believe he was that heavy.
Not bad,
right.
yeah.
I heard that. I went, let me run that back. 212, huh? Okay. The match was great. I mean, listen, Brian James, Brian Armstrong, you know, he's a capable performer. So is Sean Waltman. You know, shout out to all the different podcasts I listen to. You know, the general consensus about people who are in the business is that Sean Waltman was the measuring stick for Vince McMahon. He put him with whoever, and if Sean came back from the curtain and said, this guy's good, then you were good. So, you know, being in a match, an opener with Sean Waltman's not a bad thing. I think that it's funny that if you'd have told me when I was 12 years old that the Roadie, who I hated, obviously, would become one of the most popular wrestlers in history of professional wrestling, I would never believe that. Never in a million years. I thought it was really cool. I mean, I forgot how there's a lot of matches, a lot of wrestlers. I forgot they were as good as they were, considering their deficits. But Sean Waltman, I have over the last couple of years have gained a greater appreciation watching older matches of his, because it's really fucking good at what he did. So yeah, it was solid, man. I enjoyed it. You know, the Double J cutaways were really good. I got a kick out of those. You know, as very WWF mid '90s stuff. You know. It was solid. If I had to give it a star, I'd give it a 3 stars.
Yeah, him feathering his mullet in between just kind of reinforced the heel. It's just fucking wonderful. Mac, what'd you think about our opener?
Well, you know, gentlemen, I don't know if I have mentioned it on this podcast or not before, but I will go ahead and take the time to mention it now. One of the very first, my experience with wrestling is not as consistent as yours and Jones's is. I've always kind of been, I watched for a few years and then maybe I would take a few years off, then I'd pick it up again. So going back to some of these pay-per-views and some of these things we've been talking about on the podcast are going back to the time that I wasn't really paying attention to wrestling. So when I did start paying attention to wrestling again, one of the first things that I marked for big time were the New Age Outlaws.
Mm-hmm.
So seeing Rhodey, you know, in the infancy of him being groomed and him being with Jeff Jarrett and everything, I thought it was a solid match. I really enjoyed, and from this pay-per-view, you know, the storytelling aspect that a lot of these matches did have, which is something that we don't quite see today. It was a little bit of a slower pace. There was, you know, a lot more attention to smaller moves, and, you know, we're not spotting all over the place. Although the one of the big spots they did do, I was very concerned for Sean Waltman, because I thought he was going to die when Rhodey almost, you know, pile drove him, you know, from the second rope at the end of the match. That did not look good to me. I don't know how that was supposed to look from that, but I definitely cringed a little bit. I'm like, okay, just get up. All right,
just move.
Just make sure. That happened again later on in the pay-per-view too, in other spots where I just went, "Ooh," you know, it didn't look that great. I thought it was a very good match. I enjoyed it. Again, you know, Sean, you know, 1, 2, 3 Kid, X-Pac, you know, 6, whatever incarnation he's been. He always kind of came across to me, especially when he was factioning, as being like that little dog from like the Looney Tunes cartoons that was always with Spike.
Yeah.
And he's like, come on, Spike, let's go, Spike. Come on, Spike, we can do this, Spike. Oh, Spike, you know? So, you know, I kind of forget a little bit about him as the 1, 2, 3 Kid, and just how solid a wrestler he was, you know, before before the 20 years that kind of came with the rise of the faction popularity that he was with. So solid match, really enjoyed it. I would give it probably about 2.5 stars out of 5 there. Really liked Rhodey's charisma coming through. You know, that's one of the things about, you know, as I know him, the Road Dogg, Jesse James, is that he's such a great personality. He's so good on the mic. He's so good playing the crowd. And, you know, you even see it here. You can see that he has it, you know, in this match.
For sure. I loved the pacing in the match. Always been a huge Sean Waltman fan. And whenever you turn on a pay-per-view and you kind of forget that he's there and he comes out, you're like, he's going to fucking work with somebody. And I thought the match was great, and the crowd was hot for it. And considering that they had kind of just started to stale on Kid at this point, and Rhodey, they didn't know. A lot of heat, a lot of great stuff. And I had this match at 3 solid stars until, here I go on a rant, the stupid fucking dangerous spot of a finish. Like, absolutely fucking ridiculous. If you did that today and it looked like that today, you'd be fucking fired. You didn't protect X-Pac on the way down. This guy has a history of neck problems. I fucking wonder why. Right? Like, if I could drop them on with an unsafe, unprotected bump for both guys that lead to a stupid fucking finish that falls flat because everyone's worried, oh my God, this little 125-pound kid is dead. And it didn't even look good dead. It looked like not fun at all. So I had it higher, but my final rating on this match, great solid opener until the stupid fucking end. I rated it 2 stupid fucking spots out of 5. And that's my final shift. Now we go on. Yes, Doc.
I got it's not funny. It's kind of funny now. Like, I was like you, like I saw the power drive and I'm like, oh no, like I'm sure millions of fucking people have, you know, and you know, into the end he's fine because obviously this is 1995. But I got such a kick out of this man drops the dude on his fucking head off the top rope, gets a clean finish, and proceeds to do a fucking mic check. Like, I mean, right to the stage. I'm like, that's commitment, man. Like, I just appreciated how silly that actually was.
They moved on. They showed a replay of the shitty pile driver, and then they move right on.
They shouldn't have
to the subplot of this whole show, which is Jeff Jarrett's performance. Which I had really forgotten how much this same show was about, just that goddamn segment.
I have a question before we go forward about what we're going to end up talking about. I'm sure Noah, you do. Jeff, Mac, how familiar are you guys with this pay-per-view and the infamy of Jeff Jarrett?
Not really. I mean, I've
Okay.
seen a number of In Your House pay-per-views over the years, and I was in a similar boat as Dave. Like I came in and out of wrestling over the years.
Okay.
Jeff Jarrett, I've never really liked.
Well, he did his job well.
Yeah. So he played the
So
part
I don't
well.
know. No, do you want to wait until we get to the match? To
Yeah,
get
let's
the
wait there.
context?
I think I
Because
know.
it's kind of a big fucking deal.
I
actually.
think I know where you're going with this.
I think you probably do.
I also, when we get to that, I do have a little interesting Jeff Jarrett story, a little personal experience I had with Jeff Jarrett that we'll kind of talk about there. But yeah, so I think I know where you're going with this one, James.
When we get to these to the match, we'll talk about it. But we have a lot of time to talk about Jeff Jarrett because considering 1 hour of this 2 hour pay-per-view is dedicated to Jeff Jarrett, we'll have lots of time. But we'll get there. Moving on, we have what I have labeled in my notes as the tale of two promos following this. So we cut backstage after the mic check to Ted DiBiase in the heels. And Ted DiBiase is fucking money. No pun intended. Actually, all pun intended. Fuck it.
There you go.
$1 million corporation.
Yeah, and they're there, and every single person in this promo fucking nails it. Even Kama nails it. Tatanka nails it. Ted DiBiase hypes it up. All the heels are all like foaming at the fucking mouth for the opportunity. Tatanka cuts a great promo. Kama cuts a great promo. And Sid, for whenever he decides to be motivated, fucking comes off like a terrifying motherfucker. And they absolutely nail this backstage promo to get the heels. Mac?
So what I would love to... So have you guys know, like, when you get those big plastic igloo coolers, and like they have the white lid and it's this weird like texture to the lid of the igloo cooler. It's not smooth. It's really like rippled and there's a lot of texture going on there. When they zoomed on Sid's face, that's all I could think about.
Wow.
I wasn't sure where that was going.
I knew that was I'm pleasantly surprised.
What the fuck was going on with Sid's face? The close-up did not do him any good at all.
No, my man.
It's not quite like a catcher's mitt. It's something way worse.
As I'm picturing it in my head now, I don't know if you guys remember, speaking of we're in the mid-90s, but the mid-90s toy Squand, that was neither sand nor squishy. Squand. He looks like Squand.
Yeah, I remember that. Was it called Squand?
Maybe. I feel like
it wasn't called Squand. I thought you just made that name up.
It could be. It could be. It could be.
I feel like you just made that shit up entirely. But it did exist, yes.
It did. It's kind of a deal.
Squand.
That sounds like a failed 90s gimmick name. Now, the newest member of the $1 million corporation, Squand.
Squand.
You could overlay that with like a Nickelodeon GAC commercial, and it would make just as much sense.
Oh,
I will 100% wear a Squand T-shirt if you.
All right, if I'm wrong and that's not the real thing, then that's going to be a new T-shirt coming to you at the Nothing Good merch site. But Tale 2 promo. So we have the heels. Everyone shows up to do business for the heel side because that's what they do, and then we cut backstage to the baby faces with some guy named Barry. Who, listen, I don't know this Barry person from Adam, but I immediately wanted to kick Barry's ass. Like, I'm sitting there with like a bowl of pretzels in my hand going, I want to fucking fight Barry. I don't know. He just starts hawking T-shirts.
Well, I think I actually think that's what happened is that they realized they were doing this segment and only had one person to do it. So they went to the merch table and said, which one of you do I want to punch in the face the least? I know, Barry. Put the fucking shirt on. Put the shirt on. And
give
get over
Barry
here.
the stick and let him sell these T-shirts. So we cut back to the baby faces who are all, what I presume is that there's some unwitting rat just behind Barry that they're all yelling at. That or they're playing dice because they're all in a circle, a suspicious circle yelling downward at each other. And Barry's fucking... I'm like, oh, God. And then mid-90s.
Some bizarre circle jerk.
There's a circle jerk going on there.
Who is in the middle of that?
Where was Sonny? That's all I'm asking.
No. I'm going to ask the question. Who is in the middle of that
I said it.
with the bowl, and why was it Bart Gunn? That's what I want to. Yeah, he's gonna brawl for all on that. But they're plugging a T-shirt, and fucking then Barry. I don't think I can say that name without being like Barry. Fucking calls and Shawn Michaels over, and all they do is just make fun of the dude, and so they bail on the fucking segment. So like there is old school wrestling with the heels still clinging in from the Hogan era. A bunch of heels trying to look dangerous to sell the baby faces. And then there's literally cut to the baby faces literally jerking off to the camera and not taking the segment seriously, giving us a beautiful image of what was and what is quickly to come in the wrestling business. And speaking of what is quickly to come in the wrestling business, besides Barry, as soon as the camera's off, our next match is a tag team match with Men on a Mission featuring Sir Mo and the new King of the Ring, Mabel, for some fucking reason, teaming up to take on the most 90s tag team that was never an official tag team of Razor Ramon and Savio Vega.
Listen, you know why, Noah, why Mabel was the thing. You know why.
He's like a couch with eyes.
Yeah, he was the only one. These are the only four people not giving Barry a facial at the end of the previous segment
because they were in Gorilla, waiting like, oh fuck, are we getting in on Barry? Shit! All right.
He's a couch with
That's why I said this. And then now I can't get out of my head of a couch with eyes.
I just got
purple fucking gold couch.
Like at Prince's house. Like I just got lightheaded.
Big ass.
Oh shit.
Yeah, no, I think it's
early
safe
in the morning to break me like that.
Yeah, it's safe to say he was the most useless and unnecessary King of the Ring.
Oh
in
man,
the history of King of the Ring.
He was, and this is a world where Billy Gunn would eventually win.
I was just gonna say Billy Gunn was King of the Ring.
Jafar, what'd you think of the Savio Razor Men on a Mission match?
It was not great at all. I mean, they were hyping, Razor coming back from injury. So this was his last hurrah, but it was such a weak match in general, but such a weak ass finish. Like, how you going to win on a belly to belly suplex and pin Razor Ramon?
When that belly's 589 pounds.
Yeah. It's like when you're moving out of your apartment and you drop the couch on yourself, the one with eyes.
Guys, you realize if we found an XXXXXXXXXXXXXXL jumpsuit and the four of us climbed into it, we're not 589 pounds.
Yeah. But I mean, Razor Ramon, I loved Razor Ramon.
Oh, dude.
Even pre NWO, and when he came out, like his promos, like the pre-recorded promos that he had were just fantastic. I could watch those for hours on YouTube today. And coming off of his injury, he performed really well. I think he was the highlight of the match. Watching Men on a Mission work is not fun to watch. Neither of them have any talent. Very little. I mean, enough to be King Mabel, I guess, if you're going to try to push a guy over like that. But all in all, I thought it was a shitty match. I'd give it a 1 out of 5 stars.
Get you, Doc. How you feeling about this tag extravaganza?
Look, and this is going to happen a lot in this pay-per-view and future old school WWF pay-per-views going forward. To not speak ill of the dead, so this is strictly about Nelson's ability in the ring, nothing as a human being. But Mabel, when I was a kid, I was a big fan of Mabel, Men on the Mission, before they became heels, because they were fucking over. Oh, yeah. And they were kind of a big fucking deal. This whole heel turn, the King of the Ring, didn't work. And I think the problem with the match was it was a bad combination of people. And that happens a few times in this show. Just a weird combination, a weird matchup, but just styles don't work well. I mean, thankfully, Savio can work his ass off with pretty much anybody I've ever seen. I don't know if I've ever really seen Savio Vega have a particularly terrible match before.
No.
He just knows what he's doing. He's a fucking veteran. And Razor, and I wrote here, and I'm going to ask this every time we cover Razor Ramon, how the fuck was he not heavyweight champion at least one time? At least one time.
I respectfully,
tragedy.
I respectfully, every time anyone ever brings up the greatest wrestlers to ever be and to never be heavyweight champion, the first one usually out of their mouth is either Owen Hart or Mr. Perfect. And that you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. But I always counter with Razor Ramon because in 1995, he was fucking over. He was fucking over every second that he was ever in the WWF. And it was only until WCW, when WCW managed to fuck up Scott Hall somehow in that entire era. And also Scott Hall probably had his own hand in it.
Well. He helped.
Yeah, he did. He did. That he absolutely should have been champion. In an era where you were looking for legitimate stars, you had one and you never put him on top. Fucking, that's why you were where you are.
I mean, I have my theories on why he was never World Heavyweight Champion. His name is Shawn Michaels.
Yep, there's a lot of that.
I'm firmly convinced of that.
I also think a lot has to do with it is that obviously Shawn Michaels had Vince's ear and his pelvis, his penis specifically, for a large period of this pay-per-view, at least metaphorically, if not quite literally. And I think Kevin Nash was still relatively new in the business at this point compared to Scott Hall and Shawn Michaels. And so there was no threat in putting the belt on Nash because ultimately if you paid him enough and told him what to do, he'd show up. But Scott Hall knows how to do business. He came up in the AWA. He worked WCW. By the time we're in mid-90s WWF, he is a veteran of the wrestling business. And as such, in a time where Vince is all the other veterans are fucking leaving the World Wrestling Federation for greener pastures in WCW. And the Clique isn't exactly well known for being the easiest people in the world to do business with. So why would you take the most experienced, most over of the Clique and then set yourself up for someone to, in a way, stroke their goatee and say, I don't think that works for me, brother. To everything you do, So.
Yeah, but the match wasn't great. And I forgot that Mabel could move surprisingly fast when he needed to, but in short spurts. Like, for as big as he is, that fucker could come up off the ground when needed. And last note, who the fuck did Savio think he was trying to slam him? Like, what the? I mean, okay, Savio, brother. You gotta believe, so go ahead and believe. All right.
It happens in every match with either Mabel or Yoko in the era of this era before that, is that the babyface fires up and they're wobbling. And then they're bouncing off the ropes and they hit the heel and he's wobbling. And then it's like time slows down and the babyface starts approaching the heel and you just start fucking hearing I Believe I Can Fly from Mark Kelly. He believes in himself as he reaches under his crotch to lift this guy up. And it's like, it fucking happens in every match. And at that point, listen, they're still trying with kayfabe at this point, but fucking come on. Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah. But yeah, I give it like 1 out of 5. If I had to give it a star, 1 out of 5, just because Razor and Savio did their thing. And I do appreciate that Mabel won. I was a little like, fuck, Mabel won? But he is King of the Ring. I guess he kind of has to win.
And he is main event at SummerSlam the next month.
Yeah. So that's how I felt about that shit.
In Pittsburgh, PA.
In Pittsburgh.
Jones, you mentioned that he was just good in short spurts, which is the title of my sex life. Hey. And hi-oh. So one of the notes that I had here, now I do agree with you, Jones. I forgot that Mabel could move for his size, which I did because, later as I've seen Mabel, he could not move. And still had his size. You guys have all seen Fight Club, and I'm pretty sure a lot of our audience has seen Fight Club. We haven't talked about Fight Club too much, and our podcast here, the first rule of Fight Club, not supposed to. Second rule of Fight Club, talk about it. Not supposed to. But my fucking God, if Mabel didn't remind me of Meatloaf in Fight Club, just watching him move,
big tits bouncing everywhere,
just everywhere. I did put here Sermo almost falls trying to do his move off the top rope. And I was a little nervous for him in that case. But yeah, this was a we want to get Razor back on TV. We need to put him somewhere. As you say, you can put Savio in any situation and he's going to make a match work. The thing that I noted here too was just of this pay-per-view and of the wrestlers and the matches and everything. Again, the crowd. I was really confused by the crowd.
Mm-hmm.
Like there are times that they seemed hot, but like I would watch them and it almost just to me seemed like a lot of them just sitting on their hands. Like they didn't seem like they were into it, but sometimes they sounded like they were into it. But like the one time that this all kind of lined up for me was when Razor got in the ring. Like after Savio was doing the business for a while, and that pop that he got when he came in. Again, you brought it up. Is this how do you not give this guy a belt at some point in time? You put that version of Scott Hall in today's WWE, and he's wrestling Roman Reigns tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
And probably a 3-month program that's going to take us from the Rumble into WrestleMania. And that's going to be one of your 2 headlining matches over the 2 days of WrestleMania, right? He had a build of Drew McIntyre like before really Drew McIntyre. Guy can move, he can work, he's got the charisma. I mean, you fucking put a strap on that guy and just let it go for a while.
Yep.
But, I think in his world too, he was not the loudest of that group of people, of that clique. And I think that's why you kind of always see him being regulated to, second string duty, so to speak. And then, of course, obviously the out of the ring stuff, I'm sure didn't help, down the road either when he could have had opportunities. But, surprised the match got as much time as it did.
A lot of time.
For all things considered. But, to me, this was a transitional match because I could not wait to hear Jeff Jarrett sing his new single, which was going to be released on cassette tomorrow night on Monday Night Raw.
They made sure to mention that.
Yep, on cassette.
So,
not CD.
No.
That's too expensive for Vince in 1995.
No, we are definitely in cassette. So let's go ahead and transition to that there, Noah. Let's go ahead and transition to the music break.
Before we do, I have a couple of notes about this match real fast. I just want to kind of throw out there. Good segue though, and I will throw it back to you to do that because I don't want to cut you off like you're Savio Vega in this match 15 goddamn times. But so first of all, yeah, we cannot understate. There's very few times I'll tell someone to watch this show. But in the summer of 1995, you have no reason to believe that anybody is as over as fucking Razor Ramon is for just coming out and doing very, very little for the majority of this match. And I did the same thing. This match drew my attention to the crowd because you're still getting that pre-program from years of wrestling exposure that they pop when the babyface comes in. But they're not giving a lot of heat to the heels in these matches, with the exception of one time in the show, which is coming up later, that they actually decide to boo the heel. They sit on their hands when the heel's getting heat, and it feels dead. And then they pop when the babyface does something. So it's kind of like a half hot, half not crowd. But God damn it, peak Scott Hall, which is what this is. This is peak Scott Hall, is fucking good. Everything he does is fucking good. He looks legitimate. One of my favorite spots that I always forget about until he does it, as a babyface, is when he gets in the match. He does a little chain wrestling, bumps the heel, and then slaps him in the face. Like that's that classic Razor spot. And it's like, oh god damn, that's such a good idea. Fuck Scott Hall. I disagree about the quality of the match. Considering who was involved, I think it was better than it should have been. I'm not going to say it was a good match, but it was better because you have recently heel Mabel and Mo doing better than they should have. Now, listen, this is still because he doesn't know what to do because ratings are down. So he reverts to the one thing he knows how to do, and it has worked for him before, is he gets a big babyface champion and he builds monster heels on the undercard to go against him. That's why Mabel won the King of the Ring. It was only for SummerSlam. He's thinking short term. He had nothing for Mabel in the long term after that. And this match was just like, well, who's my number one babyface? Kevin Nash. And then number 2, Shawn Michaels. You can't touch him. Nobody could touch him except me in the locker room both before and after the show. So then number 3, Razor Ramon, fucking feed him to Mabel. Bring him back from a big angle just to squash him, literally. on the show.
Noah, when Vince was touching Sean backstage, was he at least spitting into his hands to get a little bit of lubrication, or was he just fucking going raw?
I think Sean has indicated he was wet enough that he didn't need any additional lubrication on this show. He's just fucking glistening. I think Vince used the word, look at him. He's a flamboyant, glistening man. You ever just have him look in your eyes, folks, and tell you he believes in the business and he'll do whatever it takes for the business. Yeah. That's what I mean, possibly. I don't know. It depends on who you ask.
Yeah. And no, you're hitting the nail on the head with Mabel. It is a classic Vince trope. And you do see Vince, we'll talk about that again with the final match of the night, but the classic Vince tropes, are strong then as they are as ever.
Yep, for sure. The only other positive thing is that I do love a good theme song. And I do love a good theme song that has no business being good. And I do, first of all, and you have Razor's theme, which is an iconic all-time fucking classic theme song. But I forgot how wonderful the heel Mabel theme song is. That starts with the cheesy synthesizer horns and then kicks into the Men on a Mission instrumental version of the music. And it's just like Jim Johnson, dude. He knows what he's doing. Even if the fucking people working don't deserve that gold, he gives us that gold. So I do give this match 1.75 men out of 5 missions. It's my official rating.
So, ladies and gentlemen of the audience, let's go back to, because we're recording this on a Saturday morning. So let's go back to our Saturday morning roots. And, you're watching your Looney Tunes cartoons and somebody just baked a pie. Right. And Bugs Bunny's just kind of walking by, and that little wisp of pie, that smell just starts teasing Bugs, and it penetrates his nose, and Bugs gets all fucking giddy and he levitates off the ground and he goes flying back to the pie. That's Noah with synthesizers in anything. If you ever want to get Noah just to lay a trap, just start playing some synth music by wherever he's walking by, and it will fucking draw him in.
It's true. Synthesizers are my kink, man. Not a lot of you can put synthesizers in the search bar of Pornhub, and it's a surprisingly upsetting few search results. Do you mean synthesizers? No, I don't mean shithesizers. Help me out. I said synthesizers. I just want someone looking at me dead in the eye. I'm about to, and then they hit the E key, and the fucking fat saw wave starts just go. Oh, see, that's what I'm talking. I've got a business idea now. Thank you for that. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. That's what I'm here for.
But speaking of music and sexual appetites, our next segment is on stage, getting ready just before. Soon it's coming. Jeff Jarrett's music. With Todd, I have one note about this. I have one note, and it's Todd Pettengill cries for help. He's like, hey, everybody, look at me. There's a drum. And look, there's a guitar. Are you excited? I'm excited. Hey, look at me, everybody. But like inside that man's eyes, it's death.
Listen, one of us has to go on eBay or something and see if we can try to get a cassette copy of Back with My Baby Tonight by Jeff Jarrett.
I thought you said we were going to try to go on eBay and get Todd Pettengill.
Listen, you talk about like cameos and things like that. I'm pretty sure we could get him for a whole lot less and get him on
He's
this
still
podcast.
DJing, right? It's like he's like a really successful DJ.
He's on radio. Yeah, he's a radio personality.
Going to the WWF was like a step down. I feel like he's kind of a big deal in his local market.
He actually showed up about a year ago on NXT because they did the NXT In Your House pay-per-view. And they had Todd doing his
I do remember that.
Pettengillness, his Pettengillality all over the damn show. So, but yeah, for sure. But they are really hammering down that Jeff Jarrett's going to perform this song live on the pay-per-view a suspicious amount for it to go as well as it does. Spoiler alert later in the show. But then we cut backstage to Babyface promo part 2, because apparently they realized that they just fucking were jacking off on some poor smoking gun in the earlier promo. And so you gotta do what you're supposed to do. And so we get Shawn Michaels and Diesel coming back and just cutting a barely paying attention generic babyface promo, which would go through there. Is there anything of note to decide how much of an absence the circle jerk behind them was missed during this promo? Fucking Barry.
The thing that I did like about these promos and everything is that, the thing that I hate about promos today is that the interviewer always gets like fucking yelled at, and then like the wrestler walks away angrily, and like the person's just like there just fucking holding the microphone like, what am I supposed to do?
What?
I didn't see this happening. I'm not prepared for this.
You know,
you should just use that voice all the time. That was amazing.
I can. I will channel that.
Knowing what we know about how life operates in 2022, though, if kayfabe was real, right? Could you imagine the human resources nightmare of trying to interview and deal with conflict resolution for the interviewers for the World Wrestling Federation? It's like, okay, Jesus, come on in, take a seat. Who said what to you now and did what to you? Again, on national TV. Look, Vince, we got no dispute for this. You're going to pay these people. It'd be a new person every week because someone would be in the back crying. It's like, and then Shawn Michaels made fun of my hairpiece and Kevin Nash insinuated he'd set fire to my hair. And then you just cut backstage. It's like, God, you know what? Though, and really like, God damn it, Barry. What is it now? Shut the fuck up, Barry. Barry's the only backstage interviewer I've never felt bad for ever in my life, ever.
He's a schmuck, clearly.
But they weren't. But they still helped drive the show, and that's one of the things I kind of miss about today. When you look back at Mean Gene like could fucking talk all day, every day. When you give Paul Heyman a microphone, he'll whether he's interviewing or being interviewed, he will carry the conversation. But like they were a part of the show. They were a focused part of the show. They helped drive the show. They were a mouthpiece that wasn't your commentating team. And I missed that. I think the shows would be better having that because, you remember Mean Gene. I can't fucking tell you the names of anybody who does those backstage interviews, at this stage. Like 3/4 of them were tough enough runner-ups and shit, So it's like, go back to that a little bit because I did like how that could play. They could at least carry it.
I think you're missing. I think that's one of the things we need to talk about at a later date. Is I think you're missing a sizable amount of carny motherfuckers are just no longer in the wrestling business. Yeah, and carny motherfuckers always be selling something, right? Yeah. And so you replace them with would-be sports center analysts who are just more analyzing and they're not selling you anything. Whereas Paul Heyman is always selling you something. Mean Gene was always yelling and selling something. Call the hotline, right? So
when you said carny, I thought you said Cardi. And so the first thing that I thought about was
Cardi B.
Just Cardi B with the mic.
We're missing the Cardi B element.
just like halfway through, like just making weird fucking Cardi B noises during the interview and just throwing off the like fucking Sheamus just for whatever reason necessary.
I do want to mention, and to your point about Mean Gene and that era of announcer, as Mean Gene and his ilk, they were not afraid to get in the face of the wrestler. They were not afraid to accuse them of something, call them out on their bullshit. That was the beauty. That was the relationship, and obviously the heels would be like, don't talk to me like that. And Gene would get his feathers all ruffled and like, oh, call my lawyer. Like, but it felt so natural. Like a good announcer or interviewer is just as important to character development as the performer themselves.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate. And you can tell, like, as many backstage segments they have now on WWE television, that's valuable screen time. Maximize your minutes. And, these interviewers aren't helping the talent get over the way they should be. And it's really unfortunate. And it just feels like they're there. Like you said, Mac, they're there. They get that. I call it the Maria Kanellis face. Like when you know what I'm fucking talking. You guys know what the fuck I'm talking. That face she makes when the interview's over, she looks so befuddled and confused. They all do that face. She originated that damn face, and it's now been like fucking trademarked by the McMahon family. But it's really unfortunate that we don't have that anymore, and the wrestling business can absolutely benefit that experience across the board.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's and again, there are a few wrestlers that you won't say this about, and we were very fortunate that we got to watch a lot of them. But for a lot of these wrestlers, sometimes less talking is more. And obviously we see where they will put a mouthpiece with a wrestler who's not particularly good on the mic to give them an opportunity to kind of get over. But having that back and forth, being able to, have something, I mean, because again, it would also be scripted anyway, but to be able just to have somebody else to just listen to than having to sit there and fucking, I'm trying to think of somebody who's I just can't stand listening to when they do promos. I just can't think of anybody off the top of my head right now, but just to have something else to just switch it up a little bit. But yeah, completely right about that.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure we'll wax philosophical about the lack of Mean Gene Okerlunds as we continue down our journey on the show in wrestling. But it's now time to get to one of the things this fucking show has not shut the fuck up about. Jeff Jarrett performs With My Baby Tonight live. And this song and this performance is such a key and iconic part of the show, for better or for worse. Because rock and wrestling is a thing, right? That's Vince McMahon's rock. Hulk Hogan's rock and wrestling was the goddamn cartoon. That was the MTV era. And so music and wrestling, part of the reason of WWF's success in the Hogan boom was its use of music and its use of popular content. In the mid-90s, saw the decline of the hair metal wild rock and roll that was so big in the 80s and the rise of the country music quote unquote hat acts like Garth Brooks and Alan Jackson. And so Vince is like, well, if NASCAR is now a thing and country music's now a thing on like pop music stations, well, I got to fucking get in on this. And so, but of course, Vince, with his opinion of Southern people, decides that he's got to be a fucking heel. So, but I don't know why you'd market a song that is half decent around a heel when no one's supposed to buy heel merchandise and you're going to put it on cassette, because that makes a lot of fucking sense. But dear God, here we are. And he's going to perform the song live with help. So I think after the roadie intro, right, which is just goddamn Brian James, it just has so much charisma, and it was pouring out here well ahead of the Road Dogg time. Jeff Jarrett, I have in my notes that Jeff Jarrett comes out and cuts a heel promo that only goes about a minute, but it seems like it lasts for 3 hours before the fucking song fucking actually starts. And then the song starts. And I would say it's probably one of the top lip sync performances I've ever seen in my life. Like, as far as how well done it was to do it live in front of a crowd. Kayfabe, I'm sure all of you have figured out, but that is Brian James, the Road Dogg.
Yes.
Right. And I'm as what we know from being fans of other podcasts, that why Jeff Jarrett kept looking to his right, our left, is because that's where Brian James was singing the song, so that they could be aware of each other's visual cues. But as far as in an era where the production could be quite hokey and quite sloppy, this was tight. This is very tightly done and well done. So kudos to them for this. But how did you guys feel about the performance of Jafar with My Baby Tonight?
Yeah, I think the best part of it was Rhodey's intro, because you could see the early workings of ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. Like, I was expecting him to say that, and I was like, wait, this is before that. This is before that. And then Jarrett comes out. He cuts a not great promo. He basically cut the same promo. He said the same promo twice.
Oh, it's the one promo he did since his WWF debut.
And the one thing that always bugged me with his promos was J-E, ha ha, double F, ha ha. Like, a stupid fucking laugh. Like,
he's just
like, knock it off with a fucking laugh, all right?
Jeff, he's just excited he remembered how to spell it.
I want a speak and spell that does that when you're like, J-A, ha ha. Yeah, like that would be perfect because that's like, oh, that makes sense. That's
Yeah, that's how I'm going to intro myself for every podcast moving forward.
God.
But no, to your point, like the production quality was solid. I mean, we knew he was lip syncing, obviously, but he was. If you watch it closely, he's pretty spot on in terms of hitting it. And I mean, like just watching it, you're like, all right, that's definitely not his voice.
No,
but he was hitting it and he sold it. And it's not a great song. It's a middle of the road country song, but I think it got people over, at least in that crowd.
Doc, how you feel about the live performance?
I have such a relationship with this story and this gimmick and this moment in wrestling, because for me, the Double J character and the fallout after everything that happens and the controversy with the lip syncing accusations, it was the talk of the lunch table as I was a kid. It was a thing that, like, did you see that? He was lip syncing, like, of course. And then, you had a couple of buddies who clearly, you could tell he was lip syncing the entire time. There are those of us who were like fucking 12 years old, like, well, I really couldn't tell necessarily. Maybe he was, maybe he wasn't. Looking at it, I just absolutely loved it. It's fucking perfect. It was Jeff Jarrett. It was JEFF, like that over the top, absolutely obnoxious country singer star who thinks the world of himself. I agree. The production was fantastic for a fucking WWF show. Like, it was surprisingly good. Now, I haven't watched this probably since it happened. So I was really pleasantly surprised how well it came across. Because I thought the show was going to cringe pretty hard watching it. This is pretty fucking good, actually. Yeah, and Brian James has a very nice singing voice. So it was good. I fucking loved it. I love to hate Jeff Jarrett. Fucking love to hate him. He's just such a hateable fucking heel. I love it. And just him singing so well and just like, yeah, you're gonna eat crow, and I was like, yeah, you motherfucker, you motherfucker.
Can't deny that he brought it to the table with his lip singing performance.
Yes,
Mac, how you feel about it?
Guys, I have an affinity for orgies. I do.
Yeah.
Don't we all?
They're wholesome, good old fashioned, community fun. I don't want to say family fun because that's a kink I'm not into.
Oh, it depends on how far south in the United States.
I mean, we let off with Alabama, so. But like, what you really get disappointed by is an unenthused orgy, and that's what this performance reminded me of. With the exception of the three backup singers, who were clearly trying to overcompensate for the lackluster performance of basically everybody else who were going through the fucking motions of putting on this song, including Jeff Jarrett. So I just liken it to an unenthusiastic orgy. Just, there's several couches. People are just kind of going through the motions. They're not getting paid enough. They're bad camera angles. The lights are hot. And except for these three fucking people over here who are just overcompensating and working their asses off to try to sell the rest of it. And Matt, what I felt about this performance.
That's why the camera keeps cutting to him.
There are three couches. Did any of them have eyes? I just wonder.
Being that I wasn't thinking
that couch had eyes.
There was definitely one that was purple, and I have to go back and watch it again and see if it was in fact.
Just wondering.
Oh.
But that's how I felt about it. I mean, I thought, and this was the point where, as I was mentioning to you guys earlier, I was watching this later in the evening and I was getting tired and everything. And this is kept being around the points where I was starting to kind of doze off a little bit during the pay-per-view. But I hated the performance. Like, okay, for a WWE thing, yes, comparatively speaking, great. But like, it just was so Vince McMahon's impression of the South.
It is.
And, And I also kind of felt like the best part about this was everybody else's reaction, because they fucking go into the audience and they're like, hey, what did you think about Double J's performance? And like the guy's like, it sucked. And like, oh, okay, so it was pretty good then. The guy's like, no, that's not what I said. And then they go to the next person, what'd you think? And the woman's like, well, it had sound, so it was a great song. And she's like, well, no, microphone, move to the next person. That was the best part of the whole performance, was them going into the audience to talk to people and nobody
to try to sell it.
to try to sell it. Like, would you buy the cassette? If it's 99 cents, okay, so $4.99, you're gonna buy it. Like no, that's
the best part. He's like, guys, and they pan over to a shutter guy. He's like, thumbs up, thumbs down. Jeff Jarrett's performance, and you see three people shoot the finger, and he's like, mixed reaction.
It's just that was the best part of the whole performance to me.
Yeah, I mean, well done, all things considered. We were supposed to hate it, and if you liked it, then well, there's a cassette tape for you to mail your money to a PO box.
Yeah, I wonder how many cassettes they actually sold from that. I would love to find that out. That would
be somewhere on a early Excel spreadsheet is a royalties report for Jeff Jarrett that would tell you how many. And I've always wondered, because as we know, Doc and I listen to Jeff Jarrett's podcast, and he has mentioned that he did earn minute royalties from the sale of With My Baby Tonight, which I'm going to ask the question, fucking why? You didn't sing on it. Maybe your picture's on the front of the cassette that you made money from that. Like, I don't fucking understand royalties, but that I thought it was interesting. And yeah, the best part of it, in a lot of ways, was Todd Pettengill screaming for help in a crowd in a sea of Nashvillians who just wanted to watch some wrestling, which is one of my favorite, crowd interactions. But
so
after that, what?
Real quick here before we move on to the next thing, while we put a cap on this. So as you're talking, guys, I want to do a quick search to see if I could find the sales numbers for Back With My Baby. Nothing really kind of came up, but they did say here, Jeff Jarrett's With My Baby Tonight raising money, because as they re-released the song, because we can get this on iTunes, because why the hell not? It was the sales of the song were going towards Connor's cure.
Connor's cure.
Yeah.
Okay.
So something good to come out of something audibly not great from the mid 90s. So
with My Baby Tonight will come up, and that's good. That donating Connor's cure. It's a wonderful cause and a wonderful.
Yeah. So to our wonderful listeners, if you do feel like going online and purchasing that song, your money is going to a good cause.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Well, speaking of money not going to a good cause, on the flip side, our next match, for some strange reason, there's like when you think about what I remembered In Your House too, summer of '95. Okay, yeah, I remember the Jeff Jarrett Shawn Michaels match because of how it goes, and I remember that we were in the middle of a whole lot of dieselness. But other than that, specifics start to get hazy, right? And I had completely forgot that of any reason our next match should have existed, which is Bam Bam Bigelow versus Henry O. Godwinn. And I got to jump on here and just say real fast that Henry Godwinn's theme song bothers me on a spiritual level. Like, it is so Deliverance, but not even the good points of the Deliverance, because the Deliverance song can kind of be a jam, right? It's somebody who knows how to play the guitar and the banjo, and they're going. And even though you know that it reminds you of Ned Beatty being raped in the woods, you kind of put it on your mind because it's a good bluegrass jam. This is none of the jam. It's just like, oh God. And it's just Henry God going, yeah, girl. Hooey. Yeah. Do some slow plucking banjo. I felt fucking dirty after watching him come to the ring. And I was so glad he didn't go over. Just didn't have to hear it again.
It makes you appreciate Bray Wyatt's music that much more.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
It does. So, Jafar, what did you think of Bam Bam Bigelow versus Henry O. Godwinn?
I think this was Double J's 5-minute breather between him singing, quote unquote, and him wrestling, quote unquote. It wasn't great. I mean, I never got the Henry Godwinn gimmick. Like, it was just an odd character. Bam Bam, I mean, dude can work.
Bam Bam is ahead of his time.
For a big guy, he could definitely work. And, I think he was a big draw, but I think it was a pretty lackluster match. It was the shortest match on the card, 5.5 minutes. And like I said, I think it's just like a middle card match. It's just filler to get to what's next.
For sure. Doc, Bam Bam and Godwinn.
So I have no real clear and I watched a lot of wrestling in my life, but I have no recollection of a heel Henry Godwinn. Like before the second heel turn later on with his cousin or brother or whatever that was.
Could have been the same person.
With Phineas. With Phineas, yeah. I guess that's how he debuted, I guess, was a heel. Because this is pretty early. But I remember him as a lovable babyface later on. I thought that was weird. When he came out and I went, oh, that's good. He's a heel. Okay. I didn't remember that, but I absolutely remember how crisp Bam Bam fucking Bigelow was in the ring.
Incredible.
Because that dude, man, and look, we're talking like 1995. He debuted for the Jarrett territory. Man, I came like 88 or not 88. That's like 86, 84, something like that. So, he's been around wrestling a long time by this point. So like, he's probably a little past his prime for his size, but dude still put in the work. Bam Bam, another guy who rarely had terrible matches. He's had some bad ones, but he's never had terrible matches. It was just a joy to watch him wrestle. This is the first time I watched the Bam Bam Bigelow match in a long, long time. And the only thing that really stands out to me, even though the finish was super flat, unfortunately, was fucking Hog carrying around a bucket of spoiled 50-50 salad mix. It's fucking weird. Just gotta. Well, they shot the inside of the bucket. I'm like, ooh, what's in the Oh, it's just salad. Oh, Jesus Christ. Okay, this is before the days of like HD cameras and shit. So like they're like, just put fucking salad. Go to catering, get some salad mix, throw it in there.
The first thing I noticed was that there's a lot of chard in there.
Yeah.
I'm like, you're eating organically. Way to go.
Yeah,
okay.
Some extra radicchio.
So that's how I felt. It was like two hog pens out of 5.
Okay. All right, Mac, how'd you feel about this?
So I want to read my notes about what I had for this match, because I feel like these notes really say it all. Bam Bam Bigelow versus Henry O. Godwinn, the Hog Farmer. Bam Bam wins.
Oh shit!
That's it.
Well, verbose, my friend.
That right.
Round of applause for you.
Thank you. I felt this match was highly unnecessary. I love Bam Bam. I thought we could have done something much more. Maybe take a couple minutes down from the tag team match earlier and give them maybe a little bit more. The finish really fell flat. I was waiting for something to happen with the pail. It didn't. And, I remarked for, Demi Lovato, that's how you're supposed to do head tattoos, is what Bam Bam did, not what you did.
Ooh.
So,
Dave.
Yeah.
Please stop trying to come for beloved female pop stars when you're involved in this podcast, because the internet does not react positively to it. You always pick one, and then friends of ours that don't fucking listen to the show just materialize on the nothing good page.
Yeah, listen,
tear you down.
Yeah. Did you hear what Dave said about Demi Lovato?
Listen,
God damn it.
She knows what she did with that tattoo on her head. All right. We all know what she did with that tattoo on her head. So, but that's how you go with a tattoo on your head. You go with Bam Bam. Mm-hmm. I've got a lot of great memories of Bam Bam. I really liked him as a wrestler. Crisp, solid, great worker. That's really it. Yeah. I mean, this was to me a very forgettable match. I have this being rated 1/2 Dole salad bag out of 5.
I like that. So I have a couple of notes here. Unfortunately, this is going to be the second to last singles pay-per-view match for Bam Bam Bigelow in the WWF. He will wrestle one more time on pay-per-view in a singles match, 2 more times as a tag, and then he is gone after Survivor Series in 1995. Doesn't even make the Rumble in 96 before he is out of here, which is a shame considering the run. And just a few months ago, he main evented WrestleMania as the heel against Lawrence Taylor. I think we can go on and on. The Bam Bam is one of the most underrated talents to ever be in a position, and the only thing that stopped him from being higher was timing. Flat out, just the timing coming up in the Hogan era, being too exposed during the Hogan era to be special during the Bret era, but being good enough to work with everybody and be a credible threat. My fondest memories of Bam Bam. I love Bam Bam and Luna in that heel era against Doink and Dink and everybody else. That was such a great pairing. And the theme song was just him yelling Bam Bam over and over again.
Bam, bam.
So incredible. Yeah. And he is the most underrated player to play as in the WWF Raw and WWF Royal Rumble Super Nintendo and Genesis games. Because dude was so fast and his stats are so good. It's always be loving me some Bam Bam.
He's easily the top character inspired by a Hanna-Barbera cartoon in the history of the WWF.
I would give you that. That he could have that Slammy Award for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
But we do get Henry Godwinn, and he is a heel. But this is the beginning. So first of all, this is in the run of Vince doing his disgusting heel gimmicks. You had Henry Godwinn, and before him it was Bastion Booger, and before him was T.L. Hopper the plumber. And before him was Skinner, Steve Kern as and they like to carry something gross to the ring. And then if you are an undercard guy, you get covered in it. And if you're a top guy, you don't fucking taking that shit. You're not bumping for that. So that's where we are. But in less than 2 months, Henry Godwinn is a babyface. So I think that's the reason why we didn't get the post-match bucket slot, because they are going to be turning him a babyface to feud with the young, fresh upstart, Hunter Hearst Helmsley.
You know, I thought the reason we didn't get the bucket slop was because he had a bottle of ranch dressing backstage and he was going to eat that shit before he got back to his car.
Hailing from Hidden Valley. So anyway, fun stuff. I gave this match, but it's a big bruiser of a match. Finished sees a very kind of a lazy, lackluster for as good as it could have been. Miss a splash, roll him up, get the hell out of there. I don't know why Godwinn was in this position, because if you want to keep Bam Bam to fill some time and squash a heel that you don't need to keep, lifted up. And if you have plans for Henry Godwinn, why have him loose clean on TV on pay-per-view? IRS is sitting there not doing anything. That match could have been a whole thing. But Bam Bam capitalizes. I give this match 1.5 Deliverance 5s out of 5. Post-match, though, is my favorite part. We just randomly cut to Bob Backlund trying to buy weed off some teenagers.
Yeah, a teenager who kind of looked like Bob Backlund.
Like they're really
sure that was his son.
I know he's supposed to, like, they're doing this Mr. Backlund president thing.
Yeah.
Right. And I imagine when they sold this to Bob, like, go out there and get in the face and have a conversation with youths and be a heel, so he can be like, oh, you're ridiculous. But they just cut to him having a casual conversation, and the kids are like listening and nodding. Yes. Letting you know that Bob Backlund and the South at this time was maybe trying to make America great again. And that these people would be key voters just 25 short years later. So there it is. There's these youth that he bought some dirt weed off of.
Now that you've said that phrase on this podcast, Noah, we are now going to get a boost from the QAnon listeners. So
please no.
Well, when they go back and discover what I said about Joe Rogan and vigilante justice and living in a van, and the Ninja Turtle episodes now available in the archive, you understand that they won't stay long. And then you can stay. But not staying long is the last thing before the highlight of the night. Shawn Michaels cuts a decent babyface promo and stumbles a bit, but he's excited because
and he caught himself stumbling and he just fucking went with it. He's like, I'm calling this out and I don't give a shit.
Yeah. Motivated. And this is one of the few things I have an opinion about Shawn Michaels as a person, but his work is almost untouchable when he's motivated. And motivated Shawn Michaels is a fucking sight to behold. And he was motivated to cut a babyface promo. So, excuse me. So, speaking of motivated Shawn Michaels, can we all agree that this is the goddamn highlight of the night? Shawn Michaels versus Jeff Jarrett for the Intercontinental title. It gets
that's the only highlight of the night.
We probably could have just done this entire podcast on just this match and saved ourselves, an hour and a half of viewing.
Yes, for sure. But it is Jeff Jarrett versus Shawn Michaels for the Intercontinental Championship. Jafar, what did you think of this match?
Oh, this was a great match, and it deserved every minute of the 20 minutes that it took up on the card. You know, Jones, you mentioned it before. Jeff Jarrett was one of those guys at this point who you love to hate, but you still love to watch him work because he could fucking work.
Yeah.
And Shawn Michaels, his star was rising at this time. You know, he was the new up and coming golden child of the WWF. And to see those guys fucking hustle and work, and they were in peak athletic shape, and the moves they were able to make and the way that they were able to go. I think it was the highlight of the night for sure. And it set Shawn Michaels up for that path that we all know where he's going from here. Lazy eye aside. So
Golly.
But no, it was a fantastic match. Strong finish. You know, the old, oh, sorry, the roadie got involved and he looked the wrong way and got the wrong guy, and we got the sweet chin music to finish off the match, and the crowd reaction, I mean, said it all. I mean, that the building lit up when that happened. So I fucking loved it. One thing I liked after the match was when Doc Hendricks was
just fucking
freaking out, just going fucking bananas in front of the door. He's like, I can hear them yelling at each other. He's like, I don't know what the fuck's happening right now.
I can't tell you what's going on. Yeah. He's yelling, spit on it. I don't know what happened.
So I thought that was great. But yeah, fantastic match. The highlight of this pay-per-view for sure. Like I said, both of those guys were in peak form at that point, and it was so fun to watch as a wrestling fan to see what those guys could do together. For as ridiculous as Jeff Jarrett's outfit is, which is fucking ridiculous, but both those dudes can fucking hustle in the ring, and it shows, and I think it shines in this match in particular for sure.
Incredible. Doc, thoughts?
Yeah, so I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time talking about this match in depth because of the importance of it in Jeff Jarrett's career, really. But I thought that the match was excellent. It was really cool. Jeff Jarrett oftentimes gets a bad rep for, he's not that great. Listen, Jeff Jarrett may not be Ric Flair. You know what I'm saying? He's not Kurt Angle. He's not that guy. He doesn't have to be that guy. But Jeff Jarrett is a fucking, as a solid, a professional wrestler, sports entertainer, and I've ever seen in my life. He can wrestle pretty much anybody.
Yep.
He can pull a good match out of pretty much anybody. But it's a treat. It's an absolute delight when he gets to face and work with a guy like Shawn Michaels. Because those two together, they're young, they're both hungry, they both can move, and they both have great conditioning. So they just fucking went. And, Jeff did a great job, playing up the heel bit, getting out of the ring, getting in the ring, getting out of the ring. She was pissing me off. I'm like, well, he's doing his job. It was great. Mm-hmm. It was great. But because there's so much, and I don't want to spend too much time on it, but like the context of this whole thing is, this match did not end the way it was supposed to end at all. So the roadie Jeff Jarrett bit was hot. It was, people hated it. People loved to hate it. It was working. It was good. So Vince, Bruce Pritchard, and company, the creative team wanted to break them up. And Jeff Jarrett and the roadie, Brian James, did not think that they should be broken up. They felt like it was too hot. There's still mileage. And this is all according to Jeff Jarrett's podcast and Bruce Pritchard's podcast. Goddamn Conrad Thompson. So the idea was there was a lot of things happening behind the scenes. Brian James is going to fail a drug test. Everybody fucking knew it. Mm-hmm. He was going to get fired. There was no ifs, ands, or buts about it. We're talking about in the wake of the steroid trial, there was a very low tolerance policy in place. And Jeff knew it. James knew it. And Jeff and James were very good friends at this point. Now, neither one of them believed that they should be broken up at this point, but, this is Vince's fucking company. You will do what Vince tells you to do, whether you like it or not, unless you're Jeff Jarrett. And so the finish of the match was everything's played out how it was supposed to. Rhodey accidentally tripped Jeff, blah, 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 boom, boom, 1, 2, 3. What's supposed to happen is they're supposed to get into it in the ring and have a fucking falling out live on television. That does not happen. So they just fucking leave. They just fucking leave, which is why the really awkward and uncomfortable Doc Hendricks segment takes place. That shit made no sense whatsoever. And, I totally forgot about that segment. I'm like, oh, this all makes sense. Because obviously when I watched it as a kid, I didn't know this shit was happening. But it all makes sense now because it was like,
Yep.
Yo, do something. Doc, get in there, do something. And Jeff walked out on Vince McMahon, which is an excellent episode in the My World podcast, by the way. I highly recommend that episode. It is so cool. That was
Oh no, you're right. No,
held
him up,
for however many fucking thousands of dollars because Jeff is apparently that fucking gangster and will do that to Vince 2 fucking times. But I think it was just a really interesting, and that's why they did the whole lip syncing thing. Everything just kind of came out that way. It's a really fascinating example of poor communication and just ego and people not meeting in the middle in a professional setting. Because I feel like that was a terrible decision on Jeff Jarrett's part, honestly. And Vince will take anybody back, obviously. He brought the fucking Warrior back. Rest in peace. But I feel like he was giving Jeff the ball here. Whether Jeff liked the idea of, breaking up with Rhodey early or not doesn't matter. He was giving him the opportunity to become a big-time heel. Who knows what would have happened later on down the line had Jeff just played and stayed the course with the Double J character. Maybe nothing. Maybe everything would have ended up the same. But who knows? But yeah, I think the match was excellent. It was a joy to watch. And now, hindsight, knowing what was really going on, made it even more fascinating to me. So yeah, that's how I feel about it. It was good.
For sure. Mac, what's your thoughts on this match?
Oh, it was so good. I mean, it was crisp. It was two guys that are in, peak physical condition, very healthy, being able to just do all the things that they want to do without a problem. I fucking love Sean's bumps in this match. Him going over the top rope.
Oh, that up and over was brutal.
Oh, dude. The up and over was amazing, and just how clean he lands it, right? Just so much of this match I just really appreciated. It was great storytelling. Jeff Jarrett was a phenomenal heel, and I have a weird relationship with Jeff Jarrett because I was at Ichiban up in Robinson when he was banging Kurt Angle's wife, and I was at a birthday party at a private table. And over the table next to me was fucking Jeff Jarrett with Kurt Angle's wife and kids. And, I'm a Mount Lebanon guy. Kurt Angle's a Mount Lebanon guy. He and I have had a beer before. We've had conversations. Seeing that just really just angers me because I'm like, wait, why is Jeff Jarrett in Pittsburgh? TNA's not here. Oh, that's Kurt Angle's wife, So
I'm sorry. I just imagine that you're sitting there at one of those tables at Ichiban and you look over and you notice Jeff Jarrett and Kurt Angle's family without Kurt Angle. And then the guy's like trying to squirt sake and do fucking strip club. You're like, not now.
No. See, what you're missing about that, Noah, is me fucking taking the sake with making eye contact just with Jeff Jarrett, not missing a fucking beat. It's all about multitasking. I've always appreciated, Jeff Jarrett is just an interesting person in the history of wrestling, right? But I've always appreciated his ability to work. I think he's always been a very good wrestler. I like that the dude decided, when he was going to walk out on, national television, that he was going to look like a second grade art project. Not quite a good one, but those were the times. But I one of the things that I just kind of made a note with was, Shawn Michaels doing the flying elbow from the top rope and just how fucking solid that was. Nice. It was so good. And, I was angry with the finish because I didn't do the research on that until after, because I could tell something was not quite right with how everything kind of finished. And that's when I read that, Rhodey and Double J both quit right after the match. And and started kind of going down the rabbit hole and doing the research. But that was the one thing about it, is that, I thought with the match being as good as it was, and it was such a good match, that I didn't think you needed that little trip up. I would have liked it to have been a cleaner finish, but knowing now what I didn't know when I watched it all makes sense. But I mean, this was the Shawn Michaels list bald spot, match that I enjoyed. And I give it a 4 out of 5. I mean, it carried the pay-per-view. It's the one thing that I would actually go back and watch again if I ever wanted to go back and watch this again.
Yeah, for sure. If there's one match we recommend that you watch out of this show for all the positive reasons, it is definitely this match. And I don't think we could really say enough positive things, because I noticed that good wrestling matches are great wrestling matches. When wrestling's good, it's incredible. When it's bad, it's awful, right? And so this would be a good wrestling match, a great wrestling match on any show that you ever put it in. But great wrestling matches, as we have talked about in our never-ending Halloween Havoc 95 thing.
I still haven't finished listening to it.
You never will.
You don't have
We're still
to.
recording.
It's been 14 weeks, and I still have like an hour to go.
But a good match on a bad show is like a fucking oasis in the desert, right? And it just stands out so much more. So yes, please watch this match. It goes over 20 minutes. To put things in perspective, Bam Bam versus Henry Godwin before this is just over 5 minutes. It is just over 5 minutes. That's the whole match. It is just over 5 minutes from the time that Jeff Jarrett's music first hits to the bell rings. Because this entire pay-per-view, whether you love it or not, is centered around, in a way, Jeff Jarrett. This is the Jeff Jarrett show. He's one of the first people we see. We keep checking in with him all night. So this whole thing was kind of designed around Jeff Jarrett, and I'll make a note about that because I think it was absolutely on purpose, because Vince knew what was going to happen. But my God, when Shawn Michaels comes to work, Jeff Jarrett, as we said, is a crisp worker. He never does anything poorly. But when Shawn Michaels is motivated, he can fucking work with anybody. So when he works with somebody who knows what they're doing and he's motivated to make it happen, it's fucking magical. And they don't do much for the first 12 minutes of this match, but the crowd's into it. We're into it. You hate Jeff Jarrett. Shawn Michaels is in incredible shape. Both guys are. And it's just like everyone came to work and everything is so crisp that they do.
But see, what you said there, Noah, again, is going back to the roots of classic wrestling. They used the first 12 minutes of that match. They didn't do a lot of things physically, necessarily, but they built the story. They told the story. They just Jarrett using the classic heel moves, going in the ring, out of the ring quickly, the little bits of interference, the count outs, all those different things going on, just really made you enjoy the last 8 or 9 minutes of the match where business did pick up. And you really got to see the abilities and athleticism of these guys, really go through and kind of finish the story they were telling. And that's the kind of stuff that I miss, because I think we all kind of agree, when Vince gives mid-sized guys the reins and lets them go, it's the best wrestling that we typically get.
Yep.
Which you see as a juxtaposition later on in this pay-per-view when you get the final match between Psycho Sid and Diesel, because we'll talk about it when we get there, but it's such a juxtaposition of what we saw from what was what really proved to be the highlight of the pay-per-view versus what probably should have or could have been your main event, which we'll talk about.
For sure. The last other note I want to make about the match before we talk about post-match and the history of wrestling on this is the conditioning. As everyone has mentioned, Jeff, you led off with this. The two men are in such incredible condition that it's so interesting that in a match with mid-90s Shawn Michaels that he has probably the weaker of the two conditioning, because Jeff Jarrett was barely sweating as we get to the finish of the match. You felt like that's that old Memphis, that old NWA kind of roots where that match could have gone 20 minutes longer before Jeff Jarrett looked as worn down as Shawn Michaels had. But the pacing was great. It really kind of drew into focus the whole show being in a way about Jeff Jarrett and how good he was booked to look at the end of this match. The fact that he was still had a lot of gas and it was only being tripped by his boy and getting hit with the finish that he was pinned for the 3. I rate this match, and here's a little tidbit as to what's coming. I love this match. I rate this match 4.5 eventual visits to a Syracuse nightclub out of 5, which is a nice little because that's coming. That's coming real soon.
I thought you were gonna say like Lost Smiles or something, but
nope.
I was hoping it was Shawn Michaels' Lazy Eyes.
Because that happens in like three months from now. Shawn Michaels gets ahead of himself in a Syracuse nightclub. But the whole thing is, yes, what happens is it influenced both Jeff Jarrett and specifically Jeff Jarrett and the Road Dogs' careers for the rest of their careers after this. Because Jeff Jarrett, and when you think about it, Jeff Jarrett was recently asked on a podcast would he have done it the same if he could do it all over again, and he said he would, which doesn't make any fucking sense. Because the whole reason that he did this is because he was worried that now that he's feuding with the roadie, and when Roadie gets fired for the drugs, that he's going to be left without anything to do, and he's going to be sitting at home, which is exactly what he fucking does. As soon as he walks out of this pay-per-view, he sits at home, and he's just buying his time until his contract is up when he comes back. To go to WCW for a year. And if Jeff Jarrett had just fucking done business, then perhaps he would have been in line when Shawn Michaels was eventually the champion to work at least another In Your House. And we could have got a rematch of this match. But instead, Jeff Jarrett's career took the way it was. And that's why, because this is a little bit of Jeff Jarrett and a little bit of putting 2 and 2 together. I think this show was so about making Jeff Jarrett trying to say, hey, listen, we know you don't like the creative, but we're going to fucking show you literally more than anybody else on the show. We're going to see your face. So fucking do business. But also why, when he comes back to the WWF, they lowball him on his offer. Even though he's coming off of a run in WCW, they cut his money later on. And then that leads to him not re-signing, holding up Vince and then going to WCW to get his big push. All of this goes back to the fact that they didn't trust him fully, because he walked out after making an entire fucking pay-per-view about him. That's the night he walks out on. You could have just fucking done the thing and gone to Raw and stretched it out. I don't know. But it influenced a lot of wrestling, because from there, this moment, this pay-per-view, because Jeff Jarrett and Vince's trust was shattered, leads to Jeff Jarrett going to WCW twice, leads to Vince not opting to pick up his contract when WWF buys WCW, which leads to him writing out the rest of his Turner contract and creating TNA Wrestling. So this moment is the origin of TNA Wrestling right here, to the competition events, which would then influence our exposure to Samoa Joe and AJ Styles and a lot of other things and a lot of other people. So, and then of course you get to have Doc Hendricks just fucking feverishly masturbating backstage.
Oh my god!
to an angle. He's like, I can just imagine Bruce Pritchard yelling at him, just say something, and you get the angle over.
That's 100% what had to happen.
Can you talk as fast as humanly possible? So even though you have nothing to say, it's going to sound like you have something very important to say, but you're saying it so quickly, nobody's really going to pay attention to what you're saying and have no fucking clue if this doesn't actually work out. And go. like you could have put him in a Micro Machines commercial in 1995 with that segment and it would have fucking played.
Well, he just reaches into his little man fanny bag, does a bump real fast, and then he's good to go. Do Michael Hayes. So now we get to a match that I am grateful that I forgot happened, not because it was a bad match, but because this is like absolutely, because I recently, in my life was going through all the Raws, and it was like, of course, this was the cool down match of all fucking things, but we get Owen Hart and Yokozuna, the fucking World Wrestling Federation tag team champions, with Cornette and Mr. Fuji. So it's like an entire time capsule of incredibleness against the Allied Powers, British Bulldog, and Lex fucking Luger.
Oh,
the tag team championship. Like after all that Jeff Jarrett and Shawn Michaels-ness, I was like, oh, all right, what do we got going on? And then fucking Yokozuna's music, and I was like, I forgot for a minute that Yokozuna existed, and it's like, oh shit, he's tag champs with Owen. Jafar, how did you feel about this match?
Yeah, I don't have a lot of notes on this match in particular. There was a lot of talent in that ring with those guys. It's impressive to see Yoko move the way that Yoko could move for as big as he was. And I just fucking love watching Owen Hart at any point in time. The biggest note that I have here on my notes, it says 3 of the 4 people in the ring are dead. The other one killed Miss Elizabeth.
There's no lie.
He didn't kill Miss Elizabeth. No one put a gun to her head, told her to take those drugs.
My God.
God damn it.
I think most of us feel a certain way about Lex Luger,
I do too.
and it's not great.
It is not a positive vibe.
I mean, it's weird. It was just an odd match. I mean, it seemed like an odd matchup in general. Like I said, there was a ton of talent in the ring, but it made you not like, I didn't really care about the match. Like I wasn't emotionally invested in it one way or the other. So for me, it was sort of lackluster, middle of the road.
Jeff, I want to piggyback on something you said because I had the same note. 3 of the 4 people in this match are dead. It's not just that they died. It's they died within 7 years of that match. Like, this isn't like, Yoko died, peacefully at the ripe age of 60. Like they all, everybody in this match tragically died within way too young. And regardless of where they would be with their wrestling careers and where they would go or what they would have done, these guys were all in their 30s. Yeah. So that's just tough. That was tough for me to kind of wrap my head around.
The only 2 surviving members in any side of this match were Luger and Cornette. Fuji's passed. Fuji was the only one that got to live to be an old man. I mean, he was an old man when this match happened. So,
yeah.
But it's definitely a stark realization, and that's where I was going with my notes. Is that it's at some point I had forgotten. I was into the show, and then it hit me. That most everyone in this match is no longer with us, or in Lex Luger's case, is in a wheelchair. Right. So it's not a positive. Where are they now as far as the idea? But you still get, I mean, is there any more 1995 WWF that your undercard is these 4 guys, right? Who all could have headlined the show and did for various points for Vince. Doc, how'd you feel about this match?
Well, the Allied Power song remix was a fucking banger, and I totally forgot that.
Mm-hmm.
I really, Jim Johnston, I know that man deserves his flowers and then some for what he's done for professional wrestling for my childhood. And I feel like at some point we should, when we do our favorite wrestling theme song episode, that'll really be a tribute to him.
It'll really be Jim Johnson. We barely knew.
Honest to God, it will be. But with that being said, I thought the match was really fun. I really enjoyed it. And it's just because I enjoy watching Yokozuna work. I love watching Owen work. And I will tell you, even though I'm not a huge fan of the style of Lex Luger and how he yells all the time when he gets hit or does really anything. It's fucking annoying. But a motivated British Bulldog is a fucking scary, fucking amazing British fucking Bulldog. That dude, like, when I was little, I didn't really watch wrestling a ton, like a little bit here and there. But I knew who the British Bulldogs were. And I knew as I got older and got access to like old tapes and then, the internet, and you start watching old matches, and like Davey Boy was so fucking good. Like he was really, really good. And I think he's a guy who doesn't get a lot of play and a lot of acknowledgement of how talented he was. He's a big dude himself, and he is super fucking agile. But you could tell he was motivated in this match. Like he was having, I think him working with Yoko and Owen was just fun for him. And you could tell it was fun for him. And you tell Owen was having a lot of fucking fun.
Oh yes, as soon as he and Davey get in the ring together, Owen and Davey, it was like smooth. It was like butter. It was like butter.
They're a family. They know each other.
You fucking guys. That arm wringer spot. That it was just like it was like. God, I forgot. Davey Boy can move like that, dude.
He can when he fucking wants to. And Yoko, as always, at one point, Vince says. Yoko has tremendous speed and agility. That's a goddamn understatement. Yokozuna is a fucking terrifying human being, and that's when he was even getting bigger. When he was, slimmed down a little bit more a couple years prior, motherfucker was doing shit that he shouldn't have been doing for his
Yep.
size. Yeah, it's a really fun match. I enjoyed it way more than I thought I would. So it was a joy to watch.
For sure. Mac, how'd you feel about this tag team contest?
Well, you took a little bit of the thunder away from me, because that point where, Davey Boy and Owen are in the ring together, and they have that, that the hand lock where they're rolling and they're flipping and they're reversing, and they're like, I'm just watching, like, it's so fucking clean. Like, it's just so clean.
Perfect.
It really was, and again, when you kind of look at Davey Boy, where you're saying, Jones, that he doesn't maybe quite get the recognition he deserves, I think, part of that is who he surrounded himself with, and that obviously when you're with Brett and everything else, you're not the spotlight's gonna be a little bit less on you. Even though the spotlight being with Brett will be also more on you.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I've been
point.
actually doing a lot of stuff recently, watching videos of Yokozuna and the evolution of his character, where he came from, how they came upon, WWE's been doing some vignettes about him recently, and I've been seeing it online. And how they kind of came up with and how he ran with it, and talking to the members of his family now, that and Rikishi and Roman Reigns and everybody talking about how, you could have easily with Yokozuna been offended to be just a sumo wrestler, but he's like, we're fucking Samoans, let's go, we'll make anything work. And I have a big soft spot in my heart for Yoka. I've always loved watching him. I forgot that he only had the belt twice, and they kind of mentioned here that, oh, well, he's a 2-time champion. I thought to myself, well, that's kind of unfortunate that we didn't get a little bit more of him, considering that Vince likes big wrestlers who seem unstoppable, and who's fucking more unstoppable outside of the Giant than Yokozuna. Yep. Right? I mean, fuck nobody. Diesel's not picking him up and power bombing him. So fuck, right? It was an interesting match. I enjoyed it. I thought it was a nice, match in between from what we saw and where we're going. I did start to pick up here a little bit more of the racism from this pay-per-view, which we have not talked about a whole lot here. Because I wanted to put this in here. This is the first time that we get reference to the Spanish announce table during this pay-per-view.
I have a note about this joke too.
And I know where you're, and I'm gonna take your thunder here just real quick. Mr. Jerry the King Lawler just looks right at it. And I had to write this down in quotes. I'll ring his Taco Bell.
Yep.
In talking about the Spanish announce table, which, for me, an individual who loves Hispanic culture and an individual who loves late night cheap Mexican fast food restaurants, very ill-placed, Jerry.
Yeah, no, did not age well. I don't think it aged well the minute he said it, much less here we are.
No.
People in Nashville were just like, that's all you need to know.
So I have in my notes here that there are 4 moments that are comedic, intended to be. 2 of them are intended to be comedic, but they all go wrong. So the heels come out with Fuji and Cornette. So you're like, yes. But then the baby faces, the Allied powers, come out with an army of little boys. So they just came
carrying
from
flags,
a locker room with a bunch of little boys, which is insert your context there, because that's going to go well. And then Jerry Lawler makes a racist joke about Taco Bell. And then Jerry Lawler makes a racist joke about the Jeffersons.
Yep.
And then Jerry Lawler makes a sexist ageist joke about Helen Hart. Like, in a row. And
was this, and I probably should have taken a better note here, was this the match where Vince's mic goes out and Lawler had to, which match was that?
It's the previous match.
It's the previous match. Okay. Yeah.
That was going on. As I'm pretty sure at this point Vince is like, listen, if they don't fucking do business, like his mic goes out. Like, if they don't do business, you send Doc Hendricks back there to just start jacking it and cover our asses. But no, yeah, I mean, God, guys, there's three incredible workers in this match. Three incredible workers, two incredible managers, and Lex Luger in this match. And and it shows. This match is like in the dead spot. This match is in the dead spot, and it's still fucking good because it's following the best match on the show, and it's before the main event, which has almost every other person in the company in the match, and they still fucking managed it. Yoko was so good, not even for his size. I mean, his fucking lineage. Yoko was so good. Owen Hart is so good. It's fucking criminal. You know, and Owen Hart is like if Jeff Jarrett doesn't do anything wrong, but you're gonna pick out what besides a dropkick. What does Jeff Jarrett do that you fucking love? Right? He doesn't do anything wrong, but you can't remember. But Owen Hart is Jeff Jarrett, but you can pick out the things. You know, like those spots. Like that's how crisp and excellent he is. Underrated. All, and despite the fact that everyone since his passing has never stopped lauding over Owen, he's still going to be underrated because he was so fucking good. And him and Davey, just when they get the chance to touch in this match, it's excellent. And even Lex Luger does well for his role as the.
Well,
no, please.
No, go ahead.
I would say I wasn't quite sure what the dichotomy of that tag team is because Lex Luger's whole gimmick is he's a power guy. But when you're standing in the ring next to the British Bulldog, you look like the smaller guy. It doesn't matter who the fuck you are. So how can you be the power guy in the tag team with the British Bulldog, who's also, by the way, the fast one of the tag team and who's also the better one of the tag team? So it's like... I don't understand, but I also have it in my note. I have it here about 4 times. It's like to read it verbatim for a second. Fuck Lex Luger.
Props though to watching the two of them lift Yoka.
Oh, that back suplex was badass.
Yeah, it was.
I thought I'm like, wait a minute, did they take the belts here? Because that should have been the finish.
It should have.
Yeah,
but it was not.
No, I don't ever try to armchair book. But the way the finish goes is there's that back suplex. Lex goes for the cover. Owen comes off of the axe handle, gets it. Then they shit cam him and Bulldog to the outside, and then Yoko eventually hits the leg drop for the finish. Right. What I would have done is just one slight little alteration. I know this is weird for us to do this here, but I would have had Lex anticipate the Owen come off the top. That's why he stops pinning him. Right. He comes up. Owen lands on Yoko, or he does the gut punch. Bulldog shit cans Owen, and while Lex is distracted, that's when Yoko fucking drops it, right? And that makes the baby faces look even better that that an axe handle to the back of the head doesn't beat you in 1995, and you still get the heels. But I do love the tension between Yoko and Owen that we get.
Yeah,
that you're about to turn Yokozuna of all fucking things babyface, and the only people you can do it against can make it right are Owen Hart and Jim Cornette, and they're gonna do it. And it's gonna go well.
Every time you say Jim Cornette's name, Mark Madden is just infinitely more furious.
You know, I would say, and I say this as disrespectfully as I possibly can, but respectfully considering both of their contributions to the wrestling business, one way more than other, and the other that isn't is a fucking DJ that plays a heel on Pittsburgh radio. I would say fuck both of those guys for the shit that comes out of their mouth here in 2022 all the time. Fuck them and their stupid faces. Respectfully.
Respectfully.
It's always respectfully. Yeah,
it's always respectfully.
Yeah.
Respectfully. I hope that they respectfully. I hope that they find themselves pulling into a parking spot at a gas station and they have to piss. And then some guy in a little dick giant truck with a lift kit pulls way too close to their driver's side door.
Definitely has truck nuts.
Yeah, so they can't open the door without banging into this guy's truck, and so they have to piss, and they're just waiting for this guy to come out of the gas station so they can go in there, and they suffer just a little bit. That's what I hope for both of them, but one more than the other. The one being the shitty Pittsburgh DJ who decides that playing a heel on the radio in 2022 is at all a fucking good idea, like a fucking mark. Anyway, moving on. I rate this match 3 fuck you Lex Lugers out of 5. So
no, you're reminding me of Talladega Nights where Ricky Bobby just keeps saying to his owner, with all due respect. And he's like, you can't just say whatever you want to say after with all due respect.
Yeah. I don't know what to do with my hands. But I think this is the match also that they realized that they had given so many matches before so much time, because Vince started saying, we're going to stick with the action no matter what happens here tonight. He's like, wait a minute, Vince, this is your pay-per-view. Are you worried? Are you worried that you can't trust Kevin Nash his time in the main event because Shawn Michaels is involved? Is that
what you don't realize, Noah, is that Vince McMahon, being the fucking genius futurist that he is, realized that 27 years later, this is going to show on Peacock, and this is the point where they're going to insert a fucking commercial on their own. And he was just playing it for that angle. He just knew he played that real long game,
that long-term booking.
Yeah.
Well, all right. So we get before to the fucking end of this show, we get one more, which I have to say is a terrible fucking promo from Diesel. It is. He just like, without Shawn Michaels there, and they've shown him 4 times. He's like, I'm gonna do something to you, Sid. I'm gonna say the same thing Sid said in his earlier promo, but yeah, Diesel power. And then he walks out. It's like, what the fuck? Kevin Nash is a charismatic man and is a big, tall dude. And how dare you put him in this position? How dare you? But it's time for the main event.
You missed, Noah, the WWE hotline.
Oh yeah,
which is being promoted here, because we had that clip right beforehand where Sean
was on the
fucking hotline.
Sweating all over the phone. And he's in there. I'm gonna pull the microphone. He's like, yeah, and then I beat Jeff Jarrett. And on the other end of the line, Vince is like, yeah. Yeah, how'd you do it? And then I hit him with the sweet chin music. Yeah, did you hit him right on the chin? Did you drag it across his chin? Yeah. Fuck yeah.
I mean, it was a 900 number, so
it was. Yeah,
that's right.
Kids,
what you pay for?
Kids, get your parents' permission before you call and hear that.
Just hear Sean get Vince right before the moment of completion, and then it just hangs up.
Yeah, he's gotta click.
$1.49. Charge it.
Fun facts about our main event. It is the first lumberjack match that ever made it on the WWF pay-per-view, despite the gimmick being around since the existence of wrestling. So, interesting in the main event. And lumberjacks, I have an opinion about all lumberjack matches, is that they are, lumberjacks are all one of two things. They're either fucking distracting because they're more busy than the ring action inside the ring, or they're fucking useless because they're just standing around waiting for the action in the ring to get to them. And there's never really been a kayfabe reason that lumberjacks are necessary that a steel cage wouldn't be cheaper and less chance of a steroid overdose. So here we are. Well, lumberjack match for the WWF Championship.
In the lumberjack match's defense, half of the lumberjacks were lumberjacking backstage well before they got out there, so they were probably pretty drained at that point and were going through the motions.
The new t-shirt, nothing good, lumberjacking it.
Squant.
At least put lumberjack in it. At least put that on a coffee mug or a beer stein.
But Jafar, tell us, how did you feel about our main event WWF Championship match?
Yeah, I've never been a huge fan of lumberjack matches. I think having all the lumberjacks out there is sort of pointless. I mean, I know what they're trying to do, half are heels, half are babyface, and who's on whose side. And even one of the earlier promos, they're like, who's the inside man? Which had zero payoff. They were like building that up, and then they didn't do anything with it.
Who'd they pay off?
Yeah.
Who did the $1 million corporation pay off? And the answer was
nobody.
The whole thing is a misunderstanding because where typically they were looking for an inside man, they were actually referring to the promo where they were inside a man.
Oh, that makes more sense.
WWF is like, I was trying to tell you.
Yeah, but
it just happens to be that Bart Gunn's price is really, really low.
It is. It really is.
Because
I saw that dude get in the ring with Butterbean.
It's not high at all.
No, it's really not. He's the Nick Cage of professional wrestlers. There's nothing's bad.
But
anyways, it was it was a pretty lackluster main event. One thing I noted was and maybe it's because of the size of those two guys, but the ring seemed very small in this match. And there were no highlights really at all. The match itself, it wasn't like, oh shit, this was a great match. Neither one of the guys really shined. The Lumberjacks were pretty much useless, regardless of if someone ran out or if they got tossed out. It was just very lackluster start to finish. And it seemed like the celebration after the match was longer than the actual match, with Diesel and Shawn Michaels and their whole faction. But for me, it just didn't do for me overall.
I understand with you. Doc, main event, what's your thoughts?
Well, first and foremost, Sid is, I've always felt this way, and I will always feel this way. Sid is fucking money. Dude has just the most incredible fucking look.
Oh, yeah.
It's unfortunate that, although he's been champion, and he's had a great success throughout his entire career, really, which has spanned many, 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 many years, 10 plus years. It's unfortunate that I don't think Sid ever reached the heights that he could have reached realistically. But nevertheless,
which is interesting. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Which is interesting because he's main evented WrestleMania as the WWF champion, and main evented WrestleMania against Hulk Hogan. But you always feel like he never got to the heights that he was supposed to get to.
No, we don't talk about that fucking match. That match was fucking terrible. But that's sort of the thing. He's money, but he's not that great in the ring. His look is he's the prototypical wrestler. Like, he is he looks like he belongs in another part of like humanity's history with a fucking, sword and shield or something,
Yeah, I think his look and his character are bigger than his athletic ability.
Absolutely. And the problem here is he's paired with Kevin Nash, with Diesel, who's only had a few years of professional wrestling experience by this point, not nearly enough to be seasoned to help Sid through it, because Sid's had some great matches. I've seen Sid but with specific people.
Yeah.
Sid's not a guy who can work with anybody, and much less a guy like Diesel, who also needs help in carrying a good match. The Diesel plancha was pretty fucking impressive considering how big he is. It was ugly, but it was impressive. But the only notes that I wrote, like, really, so walk me through this. Pretend I'm 5 and I don't understand wrestling logic, okay? Which sounds funny in itself. So Diesel gets his ass whipped by like 10 guys for several minutes on the outside, right? I mean, he gets the boots put to him a few times for several minutes, okay? Later on in the match, a beat up Diesel gets power bombed by Sid. Sid pins him. Nash kicks out. Oh shit. Well, I wonder why, because you powerbombed him and then went on a high five the 10 fucking guys who just beat his ass. But okay. So you pin him, he kicks out, you're shook, you go for it again, you fucking fail, and as opposed to just going back to putting the boots to him, you go outside and fight the guys on the outside of the...
No.
What? And then, to top it all off, you get back in the ring and you get a boot for the finish.
Yeah.
Are you shitting me?
Yeah. What a weak finish.
It's
what
a shit finish.
Fuck was that?
And they fucked up the boots. The boot hits him. A glancing blow to the shoulder is the finish that's supposed to beat this monster heel. This monster heel.
Yeah. That match was fucking terrible. That match was terrible. It didn't make any sense. There was no logic to it. And the finish was it was a head scratcher. So it got 0 stars from me.
Mac.
Jones, you hit the nail right on the head as usual, sir. I had that very same note. Sid, just for whatever reason, is going to leave the ring and attack the Lumberjacks when he has an opportunity of finishing the match. He's like, you know what? Fuck this. I have to go and do this.
Fight 10 other guys. What?
It's like he blacked out and just got drawn over. Like it was like a fucking moth to the flame. He's like, what? Fuck you, and just goes for it. I thought I had that same note too about the finish being just kind of like, the fuck, really? Like that's the finish we're gonna get? Okay. Um, I my note here. So a couple of notes I had on this one was, well, first off, Triple H is one of our lumberjacks.
Yeah.
And very, early Triple H. The gimmick that he had.
The equestrian Triple H.
Yes, the bureaucratic, pretty debut, elite, that whole thing, right? So hey, good to see you, Triple H. In 25 years, you're running this shit. Was my note. True. There. This was, to me, this was a classic Vince McMahon main event. I've got a really big guy over here and I got a really big guy over here, and I'm going to put the two big guys together because it's going to be big. And it just wasn't. When you have a gimmick match, and like you guys had said earlier too, if you have this as a steel cage match, it makes more sense, because it gives the wrestlers an opportunity. If you're going to have the lumberjacks there, you've got to build something about the match around them being there.
Mm-hmm.
There's got to be a reason for them to be there. They have to have a role to play. And you'd think we had it, right? Diesel is outside of the ring getting the shit beat out of him, which I also felt was more along the lines of, hey, we have a lot of people here. Let's not step on him. So let's keep the camera here just to make sure we have a little safe zone so he doesn't really get hurt. But that didn't really seem to play into anything of the match whatsoever. There's no payoff for it. So as soon as you don't have that, then the whole premise of the match doesn't make sense, and I think you lose the audience. And then you're going to have these two guys, and we see this all the time, even today. This is a tale as old as time with WWE. When you put two big guys together, it's going to be a short match. It's not going to have the payoff. You're not really going to get a whole lot of really good wrestling either. And, to your point too, Noah, with Sid, I was afraid of him as a kid.
Oh, yeah.
Like legitimately. Like that dude scared me. If I was walking down an alley and I saw Sid just kind of like fucking standing there, I would feel pretty good because I could probably run in the other direction. I don't think he'd catch me. But like... I'll zig and zag and he'll completely get lost, or I'll just throw something over there like a fucking T-Rex and he'll just
well, if you don't move, he'll lose you. Yeah.
I'll just throw something over that way and fucking the T-Rex will look and I'll just run the other direction. I'm pretty safe. But like, as the character he was, I was unnerved by him, as a young man and as a kid and everything. Right. So, this match had just very little payoff to me. I just, cause was sitting there like, well, why? Like, this is your main event, and this was maybe the fourth most interesting match on the card, and mainly because of the gimmick of it, not even because of the match itself. So, very little payoff for me. Stopgap, obviously, because they were going to push what was going to happen at SummerSlam and everything, and that was not. I mean, if you're going to have them really go at each other, you're shooting yourself in the foot for your main event at WrestleMania or at SummerSlam. So, I mean, it's like, all right, well, let's just go through this and then we'll let Sid do something else after. So, very uninspired match, but I said this was a very Vince match. I immediately kind of went back to some of the, to this year's Royal Rumble that we watched and like, well, this is Vince doing more Vince things. Cool.
And
so, yeah, Vince is going to Vince. Where WCW is going to WCW, Vince will Vince. The difference is one is still functional and the other one is WCW. So, that's my thought.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, and I echo a lot of the sentiments that you guys do. There's a couple of notes I have. Mostly, we all know how about the quality of the matches and how absolutely shit the finish is. I guess Sid just didn't feel like taking the power bomb today. And I also wouldn't put it past Kevin Nash to not feel like giving the power bomb. Kevin Nash to me is like the kind of person, and I say this as respectfully because I do like Kevin Nash a lot, and I'm a big fan of Kevin Nash matches. But if you're like, because if you came up to Shawn Michaels or Bret Hart or Steve Austin or a lot of people like, hey, the pay-per-view is running long, so we're going to cut your match down from 25 minutes to 15 minutes, they'd be like, God damn it. And they'd be pissed about it. They'd be pissed about it for days. Kevin Nash would be like, shit. If anyone was looking, he'd be like, oh, fuck, sweet. Less time in there for me. I'm still getting paid the same amount, right? Cool. Whatever. I'm not fucking doing anything else.
I mean, you're not wrong. I mean, that's exactly
so
when
Sid comes up to him and it's like, listen, I don't want to take the power bomb. Can you just raise your leg and I'll run into it? And Nash is like, oh, that sucks. Can't believe him. I'm like, fuck yeah, that's fine with me. And it doesn't make me look bad. I could barely kick you and you go down. I'm still going to be champion tomorrow. Look, fuck you. Whatever you want to do, Sid.
I have in my life, and even to this day, there are people that I work with that the path of least resistance is the path they will always go down. So as you kind of said that about Kevin Nash, I'm like, well, fuck yeah. Let's just get it. Let's collect our paychecks and move on.
Yeah, and you don't have to work with Sid. You can go outside, have to Tonka stomp you a bunch of times. Nash did bump for Mabel outside the ring, and those were some hard bumps too on the floor. Like he didn't. There's no way to sugarcoat those things. So that was his bumps were to someone who's not Sid, because he's got to draw money with Mabel presumably next month. Spoiler alert: it wouldn't. But so the other notes I have to say is that one, there's a sign that pops up a bunch of times through this match where people have, which is supposed to be Sid. But because of the shadows and how the angle that they're holding up the eye, it looks like a sign that just says STD. And it keeps popping up over the Lumberjacks during every fucking wide shot. It's incredible. So, yeah, this is the STD match to me. And, the Lumberjacks are useless. And I was wondering why they were there. And then I actually stopped halfway through and rewound to the beginning of the match, or clicked the back 10 seconds button enough times till it happened. And I realized the whole reason that this is a lumberjack instead of a steel cage match, because that would make a lot of sense, was to make sure that you could have a little heat go on to Mabel and Diesel, but mostly because this was one last opportunity that Vince McMahon had to make this match about Shawn Michaels.
Yep.
God doesn't come out with the lumberjacks. He doesn't come out right. He comes out next to the champion, to the point where the camera is centered on Shawn Michaels during Diesel's entrance. Shawn has the two big high spots in the match, jumping into the Lumberjacks. You make sure Shawn Michaels is in camera and frame every chance you get. And when the baby faces are all pounding on the ring, you don't see Shawn Michaels because he's too busy looking cool, talking to the chicks in the front row, and then he shows up for a spot. So the whole reason this is here is one more chance for Vince to slowly stroke himself underneath the announce desk while Shawn Michaels is filling up his monitor, and then also while he's on his TV screen as well.
Noah, I was wondering why the very last shot of the pay-per-view was Vince sitting there with the top buttons of his thing unbuttoned, his Texas, his Southern like necktie, and just fucking taking a drag from a cigarette. Now it totally makes sense. He needed Shawn to finish.
Yes. He at least he's courteous that way. He won't until you do, right? And that's Vince McMahon. He wouldn't do anything. He wouldn't ask you to do anything he wouldn't do, including that. But it's a shit finish. I rated it a half of a Kevin Nash hair flip out of 5. So very, very, very low. But ultimately, that's it. It's in your house too. They would move on to SummerSlam in Pittsburgh. The only thing of note is that from that show, which I hope we never actually have to cover, is that it's the rematch of the classic ladder match between Shawn Michaels and Razor Ramon, the Intercontinental titles. And they continue to, who can we put Shawn over? Razor's just putting everybody over in the company. No wonder why he was upset enough to leave for WCW money in just 9 months after this. And then it's Diesel versus Mabel, which is an utterly shit match and an utterly shit main event that does see Kevin Nash win by hitting a diving elbow drop off the top rope, which is actually worth Googling, because it does look good. But trust me, you'll catch all of the you need from this pay-per-view is on there. And I say that respectfully, knowing that Bret Hart actually wrestles on this show coming up. So, which leads me to my question, guys. Did you all find yourself wondering why the fuck you couldn't put Bret Hart on this show somewhere?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Go ahead, Jeff. Sorry. No, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, it was such a huge miss on Vince's part to not have Bret Hart on the card. I mean, when you have Bret Hart in your business, you fucking put the guy on TV.
Yeah, it's a huge miss for this show. that we didn't get to talk about Bret Hart in a Bret Hart match, because it would have been perfect. Of course, the show would take that from me, that he's in the show, that he would come out after this lumberjack match for the live people in fucking Nashville in July of 1995, but we don't get to have that shit. So,
well, not just that, but Undertaker. You know, I mean, you've got two aces in your deck of cards that you're not even playing in this pay-per-view right now. I get it's a 2-hour pay-per-view, and you know, in some cases I'm very happy it was just a 2-hour pay-per-view. But you know, I'm sitting there, and I had done some research on this too, and they had talked about the dark match with Bret, and they talked about the match with Undertaker. I'm like, why am I not seeing these? Yeah. Like, no offense to Bam Bam and his riveting match against let me just make sure I get the nickname right here. The Hog Farmer.
HOG, Henry O. Godwin.
Exactly, right? But like, I mean, when your business is where it is and the competition's ramping up, and you've got these two guys, and you gotta use them. And I was very disappointed that I didn't get a chance to really see them work. But you know,
yeah, and it wasn't just an Undertaker match; it was a fucking casket match.
Yeah,
yeah. Why go through the work of actually having a casket match if nobody's going to see it except for the audience?
You know, maybe, Jeff, it was because we did not want the viewing audience to know that the casket match was going to be just that much better than the lumberjack match, and we didn't want to send them disappointed, even though they were already sent home disappointed from the finish of that main event.
Yeah.
Now, hopefully, they all got a free cassette as they were leaving out the door.
Oh my God. Well, that wraps it up. Stick with us, guys, as we keep going here with Nothing Good. We've got a lot of fun stuff coming up. Before we cut to, I tried to mention this earlier and I probably forgot, and it's bad promotion on my end, but we have a very special surprise coming up here in just a few moments at the end of this, a special treat from us to you, the listeners. But before we do, Jafar, why don't you tell us what we can anticipate coming up next here on Nothing Good?
Yeah, next week is our next movies episode, and we're going to be going through a little film called Clerks from Kevin Smith. Man. Classic film. It came out right around the time of this pay-per-view.
Yep.
Jeff, are you prepared for this?
Yeah, I wore sweatpants, so I have extra room.
All right, just making sure. Yeah, just making sure.
Beautiful. We'll discuss this film, how it influenced independent film forever after the release of this movie, how it launched so many careers and so many moments and changed so much. We'll get that going on. But gentlemen, are you now prepared for this very special surprise?
As prepared as we will ever be.
Usually, Noah, when you ask me if I'm prepared for your very special surprise, I'm handcuffed and blindfolded. So I'm a little bit taken aback as to why I'm not right now.
Well, that's okay, because this is one I'm not just giving to you. I'm giving to all of the world of humanity. You see, when Nick, our wonderful fan, suggested this wonderful, wonderful event, my brain clicked that the only thing that I remember from this show was the performance of With My Baby Tonight and the pay-per-view in the match that would follow. And so the wheels began spinning. And so normally we would do my shitty outro where I would play something that tells you to go to the website and give us your money. But we're not doing that, because right here tonight, as the special way to conclude this episode, in the spirit of Jeff Jarrett's With My Baby Tonight, may I present to you Nothing Good with Sega Channel Tonight. Check it out, and we'll see you later. Spend my days talking to Herb Jones, but he just won't listen, cause he's good to go. Cause he can't wait to have sex with Sega Channel Tonight. You know, it's got him wrapped around his coaxial connector, cause he's gonna tear it up like he was Hannibal Lecter. Cause he can't wait to have sex with Sega Channel Tonight. He'll make the games load by using his love. You know it's true, he just can't get enough. Thinking about Sega Channel makes him bust a nut. He can't wait to have sex with Sega Channel tonight. Sex with Sega Channel tonight. In an Arby's dumpster, he will take it from behind. He doesn't think there's anything better than pounding Sega Channel with a beef and cheddar. He can't wait to have sex with Sega Channel tonight. How can it be wrong when it's the best? When the Sega Channel craps on his chest. Dolph Secret wants it, but he's not for begging. But if it'll seal the deal, then he's down for pegging. Dolph can't wait to have sex with Sega Channel tonight. Oh, Doc can't wait to have sex with Sega Channel tonight. Now don't forget, folks, that DOCFUCKSEGACHANNES